live to fight another day? Or would his leadership be forever tainted, leaving him a dead man walking ahead of the Labour Party's first birthday of their victory on Saturday? Now, this government policy doesn't appear to be going very well at all, does it?
Serious answer is to smash the gangs. We have to take those gangs down, to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, to smash these gangs.
Well, the gangs simply aren't listening, because another grim landmark has been reached today, with now 20,326 illegal immigrants reaching British shores this year. Sir Keir Starmer promised to smash the gangs, but all he's smashing is records. And the Nissan plant in Sunderland is axing 250 jobs after an astonishing 88% drop in profits for the year 2025. The car giant's worst results in over 25 years. Now, with plummeting demand for electric vehicles being the blame, is net zero killing the British motor industry? And Elon Musk is threatening to launch his new America Party, on day one if Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill is passed into law. The ex-billionaire claims our country needs an alternative to the Uni Party, but could the move throw a lifeline to the dead duck Democrats and let them back into the White House? And that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, rebel. Over 40 of them, apparently, are queuing up to put the boot into this welfare bill. And with the Reform Party, the Conservatives, the Liberal Democrats and the SNP, no doubt, all queuing up to put the boot in, this one is going to the wire. Most likely, the Labour Party will limp over the line. But then bigger questions will remain about the credibility, the authority of this government, of Sir Keir Starmer. I'll be joined by Dan Hodges in the studio, a Fleet Street columnist for The Mail. He says Sir Keir Starmer is a dead man walking. Today will cement that, irrespective of the vote. All the action on the show, all the way until that crucial vote at 7 p.m. All the build-up, all the analysis, all of the front row seats here on GB News. Get in touch usual way, gbnews.com/your-say. But now it's your headlines, and here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thanks, Martin. Good afternoon to you. Let's get you up to date with the latest. The government is facing a major rebellion, as you've been hearing, over planned welfare cuts. Dozens of Labour's own MPs are threatening to vote against the bill in the House of Commons later, despite Sir Keir Starmer watering down the plans last week. Live pictures here from the Commons. The Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall has been speaking. She's defended the reforms, saying they fix the broken benefit system. The Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch, though, has described the reforms as rushed. Now, only new disability benefit claimants would be affected under the revised package, but critics are warning it could push 150,000 people into poverty. The Business Secretary Jonathan Reynolds insists the reforms are still better than the current system.
People with the most significant disabilities who will not ever sort of get better, they won't be reassessed under this. They'll lose the stress of that and will be not wasting money doing that. But we will make sure that support is going to people who need it the most. I think that's really important. That's what I want to see from the system. That's why I asked colleagues to support it today.
3 former hospital bosses have been arrested in connection with the Lucy Letby case. They're being questioned on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. The senior leaders were in charge at the Countess of Chester Hospital during 2015 and 2016, while Letby, now jailed for murdering 7 babies, was working there. It follows a major police investigation into corporate manslaughter at the hospital. Police say all 3 have been released on bail as inquiries continue. The UK's longest-running cold case has been solved after a 92-year-old man has been jailed for life for the rape and murder of a widow in 1967. Ryland Headley was 34 when he broke into Louisa Dunn's Bristol home and attacked her. A jury found him guilty nearly 6 decades later after new evidence came to light. The judge called it a pitiless and cruel act by a depraved man. More than 20,000 small boat migrants have now crossed the Channel this year. New figures show the milestone was passed at 2 a.m. this morning when a border force vessel carrying 60 people docked in Dover. 2 more boats arrived by 8 a.m. with several others still in the water. It means crossings are up 50% on this time last year. A further blow for the Prime Minister as he marks a year in office. A new returns deal with France, though, is expected next week. although critics say it will not stop the smuggling gangs. Energy bills are falling for 21 million households across the UK, but experts are warning they may not drop much more before winter. The typical monthly bill is down £11 under Ofgem's new price cap, with gas and electricity rates both slightly reduced. But charities say prices are still painfully high, with families budgeting tightly and returning to support schemes. Regulators are urging people to consider fixed deals, which could save around £200 a year. The Prince of Wales is being praised for reshaping views on homelessness, much like his mother Diana did for AIDS and landmines. At an event in Sheffield marking 2 years of his Homewards project, former Prime Minister Gordon Brown said William's huge convening power should lead to something big. William told pupils homelessness is not just about housing. More than 100 initiatives are now underway with new homes and early intervention schemes in schools. And parts of the UK, well, scorching already, but could hit 36 degrees any time in the next hour or two as the heat wave pushes temperatures higher here than it is in Barbados. It follows a record-breaking start to Wimbledon, where highs of 33.1 were recorded yesterday. The UK Health Security Agency has now extended its amber heath health alert to more regions. Forecasters say the southeast will get the most intense temperatures, but showers could roll in across Wales and the north. So we do hope you're getting a break from those soaring temperatures and a better night's sleep. More from me in about 25 minutes' time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Quick look at the markets. Today, the pound buys you $1.37, 1.16 euros. Price of gold is £12,345 per ounce. That's not quite right. We'll fix that up for you a little bit later.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Thank you, Aaron. What a day of politics we have ahead, because the Prime Minister is braced for a major rebellion today over the government's flagship welfare bill. You can see there live pictures from the Commons, the debate rolling on. And that is ahead, of course, of a crunch vote in the House of Commons around about 7 p.m. this evening, where around 50 of his own MPs are expected to vote against the legislation that is currently being debated and what would be the largest rebellion of his beleaguered premiership thus far. Don't forget, only 1 year old on Saturday. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has told his cabinet today that there have been a significant achievements over the past 12 months in office, highlighting 3 trade deals, 4 interest rate cuts, breakfast clubs and free school meals. But of course, this is amid record low polling ratings, both for the party and for the under-pressure Prime Minister himself. Well, I'm joined in the studio now by the twin delights of GB News presenter Chris Hope and the media campaign manager at the Taxpayers Alliance, William Yarwood. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Chris, let's start, if we can, with the scores on the doors. We're around about 4 hours away from the vote. They're debating in chamber. Of course, a lot of the rebels think these cuts go simply too deep. Conservatives and everybody else think they go too shallow. How many Labour MPs may rebel, and what do you think is likely to happen later on today?
Well, key number to look out for is 83. More than 83 vote against, the bill falls. It's a complete disaster in this anniversary week of this Labour government. Currently, we're around early 40s. I can't see it going above 50. I think it'll be a bloody nose for the government, but no knockout blow. 2 votes tonight, live on GB News, 7 p.m. tonight. We have this wrecking amendment. That's the amendment signed by all these rebel Labour MPs, and then we have a second reading vote around, I would suggest 7:45, but could be earlier. So that's when we'll get the scale of it. Awkward, difficult ministers right now reaching out. Sir Keir Starmer's in Downing Street, meeting with some public service workers to mark the year, as he says, of achievement for this government. He'll be voting later. That's rare too. Doesn't always vote, Sir Keir Starmer, as we know. He's called Never Hear Keir for his prosecution of UK interests on the global stage, but that's going well for him, by the way. He's lost touch, I think, with a feeling amongst his backbenchers, and that's where he's been found out with this welfare vote. Tories are going to vote against it, and just announced now the Liberal Democrats. They say Steve Darling, who's their spokesman, we shouldn't be abandoning some of the most vulnerable in our society. Kimmy Badenoch, in her speech, she made clear that every day 3,000 people are added to the tally of incapacity benefits up. She says that rate's up by 50% since Labour came in. This isn't a cut in benefits, Martin, it's a slowing in the increase by £2.5 billion a year, not even £5 billion planned last year. A pimple, a freckle on the rump of the £100 billion bill by the end of this decade.
Doesn't this point to the sheer absurdity of the situation that we're in? And it's this. It cost a 50% U-turn, a £2.5 billion backtrack. And by the way, anybody who's currently on PIP won't even have their claims looked at. So it doesn't even acknowledge the fact that those people who could be scamming this at the moment won't even get a probe. That's the scale of the climb down. A 2.5 percentile saving on £100 billion per year by 2030, and yet the Reform Party, the Conservatives, don't think the cuts go deep enough. Maybe they've got a point.
Well, that's where the votes are. I think, you know, we don't talk about advisors here because that's quite boring for viewers, but there is a guy called Morgan McSweeney who does understand that reform must set on the agenda. That's where the votes are. That's where a lot of Labour voters in the north want the party to go towards, and that means cut down and stop rewarding people for not working. Just finally, Rachel Maskell, who's the lead rebel, she is calling the cuts, even watered down as they are, Dickensian. They belong to a different era and a different party, she tells MPs. These Dickensian cuts belong to that era. They're far from what Labour stands for, a party which should be protecting the poor. And it's her purpose because I am my brother's keeper. Lots of emotional language, Martin, in the chamber right now.
Yeah, there is. Let's bring William Yarwood in, media campaign manager at the Taxpayers Alliance. So there we go. It's Dickensian. And yet today you've produced another raft of data showing the extent of the PIP claims. Tell us about some of the frankly absurd data that you found, the types of people claiming. Some of them have writer's cramp.
Yes, and some of them have acne, and some of them are obese, and some of them have alcohol issues, and some of them are addicted to drugs, Martin. You know, granted, these are in the thousands, they're not in the hundreds of thousands or even tens of thousands, although if you look at, say, anxiety and depression, that's now over 100,000 a year, and that's up from about 24,000 in 2019. So there's been a way in which people have been able to get into the welfare state in such a way that they have never been able to before, since before COVID. And I think one of the key reasons for this, which is not often talked about, is because in-person assessments for PIP have completely declined since COVID. Before COVID, about 85% of them were in person. Now it's around 2 to 5%. So no wonder people are able to game the system if they're just doing it over Zoom.
And William Yarwood, some of the data you've put out today was mapped by the Mail, and it produced something, I think, which is astonishing and actually might be a template of how we can address this. And that is half of the top 10 highest claiming constituencies, this is for anxiety or depression, are all in or around the Welsh valleys. The top spot goes to Liverpool, Walton. That's the home to Everton, Goodison Park and Liverpool's Anfield. And meanwhile, we have huge pockets of depression and anxiety around County Durham. I put it to you that perhaps a sensible policy might be to go into these areas and find out what the heck is going on. And by the way, that probably won't happen, and perhaps it explains why no previous or existing claims will be probed, because guess what? They're all particularly in Labour heartlands.
Yeah, indeed, that's the issue. And if you look at our top 10 areas for sort of the most amount of PIP claimants per 1,000 people, they're pretty much all Labour areas. And also a lot of those people on those lists, they're the people rebelling today. I mean, I think Chris mentioned earlier there was about just over 40 rebels, I think there was. We did a little bit of a breakdown earlier today. We looked at about 39, 40 rebels overall in England and Wales, where our stats were broken down, and found out that across all of their constituencies combined, they had around 300,000 PIP claimants in just those 40 constituencies combined. So no wonder they want to do anything about it, because guess what? Those are the people that vote for them.
Chris Hope, isn't that a brutal point? The reality of this, often constituency MPs are voting for their own survival. They claim it's about Dickensian values. How about it's about their own great tale of survival? And that is, if they vote this down, they'll be dead ducks. They'll lose their seats. Is there a clear case in William Yarwood's data and the mapping we've seen in the Mail today? This is PIP for votes.
We don't know. We heard earlier from one of the guests on the channel saying there are pit parties from people who feel they're not losing their money under this government. I think, as someone who's covered politics for 30 years, that really only a Labour government can properly reform benefits, and probably the NHS. They have the political space to do it. And I think it needs. I'd argue it needs reforming. For then the Labour government thinks
they haven't been allowed to do that.
Well, they haven't had the
rebels.
will to do it. They could have a go. They haven't done this very well. This looks like a money-saving exercise to cover up for the issues with the spending issues and the sluggish growth in the economy caused by. Well, under the watch of Rachel Reeves, some would say caused by the tax on national insurance and the increase in minimum wage. These have borne down on the jobs and fewer jobs in the economy. So there's a wider picture. These MPs believe that those who can least afford to cover that cost of that are being made to pay for it. That is a conversation to be had by the Labour Party with its supporter base. But I just do think only Labour can do this properly, and it's quite depressing, I think. We are going towards £100 billion on benefits by the end of the decade. That is not affordable. No. And cannot carry on. And I do worry that this government won't want to have this fight again in the next 4 years.
Absolutely. Well, it's a huge day in politics, and let's see what happens. Chris, hope you're going to be there for us live throughout, and you'll be there reporting from the vote. Did your usual excellent work of grabbing MPs as they go past. William, as ever, thank you very much for joining us in the studio. Excellent start to the show, gentlemen. Thank you. Now, it's the end of the line for the royal train because King Charles has decided it's time to retire the historic locomotive. With rising costs and a new era of royal accountability, the palace says the train will go by 2027. And meanwhile, the royal helicopter use appears to be on the rise. They're all aboard the chopper. And here's the King and Queen arriving in Edinburgh earlier today with the leasing of 2 new choppers. Not Chris Hope, but 2 royal choppers, which will be use sustainable aviation fuel. That's right, a woke chopper. Now, this decision comes as the public money used to fund the monarchy for the last financial year has been revealed, costing over £86 million. Well, let's speak now with GBNews' royal correspondent Cameron Walker. Cameron, there's always a conversation about is the royal family good value for money? What say you?
Yeah, well, £86 million sounds like a lot, doesn't it, Martin? But let me break down exactly how that money comes about. So the King owns this big portfolio, which is known as the Crown Estate, of lands, of property, and the seabed around the United Kingdom, which we should be able to show you on your screens shortly for those of you watching on television. And the King surrenders all the profits, over £1 billion of revenue each year the Crown Estates get, to the Treasury, so the UK government can do what it likes with it. However, they pay a percentage back to King Charles in the form of these sovereign grants to fund the monarchy for things like the upkeep of royal palaces, for paying staff, and, of course, the official travel and so on and so forth. But not everything is funded via the sovereign grant. So if we show you this next slide here, for those of you watching on television, it is on social media and on gbnews.com if you're listening on radio. Things like security of the royal family, not included. Policing of royal events, not included. Neither is the local government cost, the local councils of putting out crash barriers, etc., for when members of the royal family come to visit their region. That is all funded by taxpayers, but that's not included in the sovereign grant, and we do not have figures. Figures are not released as to how much money that costs, which is why Republicans always argue the true cost of the monarchy is worth more than £86 million. But on balance, most people in the United Kingdom still say that it is value for money. So let's talk about some of the specifics. So as you mentioned, Martin, the royal train is being scrapped. So it's going to cost too much to upgrade it for the modern rail systems. It also is very old and it cost a lot of money to run. Only 2 journeys were taken last year with the royal train. The first one cost just over £20,000. The second one cost over £40,000. So the helicopters are a far more efficient use of public money. What we've also learned is that the most expensive royal tour of the year so far, of the financial year last year, was the Australia and Samoa tour undertaken by the King and Queen. The flights and the travel associated with that cost over £400,000. But elsewhere, the King has granted the right of Prince William and Princess Catherine to give out royal warrants to British businesses. So a boost to British businesses. Those with existing warrants can apply to have one from the Prince and Princess of Wales until the end of this month. And then next year, any other company that provides a service or a product to the Prince and Princess of Wales can indeed apply for a royal warrant, which will be a boost usually to their business because more people want to have those products because it's associated with William and Catherine. When it comes to Prince William, the accounts for the Duchy of Cornwall, that's his own private portfolio of lands and property, was released as well, which shows that he was allocated £23 million a year to pay for his staff and, of course, pay for the lives of his wife, the Princess of Wales, and his 3 children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis. Now, earlier this year, Prince William was criticised for his duchy charging rent to government departments, including the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Defence, to use his lands to store ships or build a prison, for example, in Dartmoor Prison. Now, what Prince William has done in response to that is not change those specific ones, but what he has done is waive the rents for grassroots community tenants and will offer up to a 50% discount for charities and potentially primary schools which are built on his land. So Prince William is starting to move the dial when it comes to people who use his land in the Duchy of Cornwall. So it is a lot of money, £86 million. It's also going to go up slightly next year because Buckingham Palace is in the final stage of the renovation work, so it will go up to over £100 million next year for the next 2 years. But it means that Buckingham Palace will be less likely to burn down or flood. So, I mean, make of that what you will.
Cameron Walker, an excellent analysis as ever. Certainly Chris Hope's getting a bit hot under the collar here. He thinks we should be cutting back on some of these savings. Oh, he's done as a monarchist, Chopper.
Well, I am a monarchist, Martin, but I wonder why they can't make savings and rather than ask for more money from the public purse.
You've been hanging around with Jeremy Corbyn too long. Thank you very, very much, Cameron Walker and Chris Hope. Superb stuff. Now, coming up, another grim landmark has been reached today with over 20,000 illegal migrants reaching British shores this year. Keir Starmer promised to smash the gangs, but all he's smashing is records, and that's next. Live pictures there of those boats rolling ashore to Britain. Hotel Britannia awaits, and you, the British taxpayer, are picking up the tab. That's next with me, Martin Daubney on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:25 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, it's yet more bad news for the beleaguered Prime Minister because more than 20,000 illegal immigrants have now crossed the English Channel so far this year. Now, that's despite the government's best efforts to smash the gangs. Now, the grim milestone figure of now 20,326, because 343 have landed today. It was reached earlier this morning when another Border Force vessel arrived into Dover Harbour with 60 migrants on board. And significantly, the figure is staggeringly 50% higher than at this point last year. Well, I'm now joined by the political commentator Matthew Stadler. Matthew, a pleasure to have your company. So Keir Starmer, number 10 today, said they've made some significant advancements since coming into power. They certainly have. The figures are 50% up of illegal immigrants. A grim milestone. Smashing the gangs was the pledge, but the people smugglers simply aren't listening.
You'd imagine that it would take a little bit of time to smash the gangs, as Keir Starmer said he would when we went to the polls almost exactly a year ago today. But nonetheless, it clearly has been a failure. I suppose the question is, why have they failed? Well, first of all, it's probably quite hard to smash the gangs. And I think Starmer perhaps over-promised in that regard. But this was a problem that beleaguered Rishi Sunak's tenancy in number 10, wasn't it? He said he was going to stop the boats effectively, and he failed to do that. And I've no doubt that had something to do with his defeat. Clearly, this is a toxic and difficult issue for any government. I haven't yet, Martin, heard a convincing plan for how to arrest these numbers, how to stop these numbers coming across the channel. What I would say, you may well disagree with this, but I'll put it to you anyway, that this became more of an issue after Brexit. And why did it become more of an issue after Brexit, when we were supposed to be taking back control of our borders? And I suspect a lot of people voted along those lines. Well, partly it became more of a problem after Brexit, precisely because we're no longer signed up to the Dublin regulations, which made it easier for us to send refugees, to send asylum seekers back to the country where they had first sought asylum.
OK, Matthew, I indulge you momentarily there and let you speak away. Explain to me then, Mr Stadler, the boom in illegal immigration in Germany, in Greece, in Italy, in a manifest number of other European states.
Clearly, illegal immigration and asylum is an issue by no means confined to the British Isles.
So it's not Brexit?
Sorry, absolutely, you're right on that. But I repeat, were we still part of the Dublin regulations, we would have been able to send many more people than we're able to send or have sent back so far to other European countries. That's simply a fact. But let's look forward, because we're not going to go back into EU, are we, Martin?
Let's look at
what is your proposal? What is your proposal?
Let's look at the data.
What's your proposal?
Matthew, do you know how many illegal immigrants were returned to European Union member states under your Dublin Agreement rules? Do you know how many? Because I do.
Tell me how many.
242. We had 343 today. Matthew, forget about Brexit. This is a total failure of state. And I agree with you. The previous incumbents weren't much use either. The Conservative Party, you were correct, was sunk by this issue. I put it to you, the Labour Party is on the same track. What could be done? Well, we could leave the European Convention on Human Rights, which will allow us to circumnavigate all these ridiculous deportation restrictions that have been laid down by judges and by activists and NGOs in this country, which derailed Rwanda. We could start with that. We could build an offshore containment centre. They're doing that in Germany. They're doing that in Italy. There are European Union Union member states, Matthew Sadler, that have done all of the above. But I put it to you, we just simply don't have the political will in Britain.
I don't have the stats that you've just quoted to me, but assume for a second that you're right. That doesn't mean that the vast numbers of people, and there has been large numbers, even though it's a tiny proportion of overall net immigration to this country, that had we been still part of the EU, this particular problem, which is such a visible problem, when we are actually picking people up, so we know that they should not be in the country, they should, well, at least they should not have come by that route over the sea. Had we still been part of the EU, and by the way, I'm not advocating for us going back into the EU, I'm trying to explain why we are where we are, then I think we would have been able to send many more back than we've so far managed. Do I think we should leave the European Convention on Human Rights? No, I don't. But I know that senior figures, such as Sir Malcolm Rifkin, who I recently talked to on stage, thinks that that should be reformed. It should be reformed collaboratively on an international basis. And there may be some argument for that. Let me just finish my answer. I don't want to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. I don't want to be the only country, as far as I know, along with Russia and Belarus, that sits outside that. I don't think that would be in the interest of the country.
Matthew Sadler, the notion that the ECHR can be reformed from within is a fantasy. It's a fantasy up there with believing in the tooth fairy. And I'll tell you why. Because every member state has to agree to any single member state wishing to amend it, which won't happen in a month of Sundays. That's why we had to leave the European Union. There's no way of amending the rules because it's one for all and all for one, Matthew. That's the reality. But I do totally agree with you that successive governments have not grasped this. And I think if this one don't, they're going the same way as the Conservatives.
Just to respond to that, as I said, I think you should take this point seriously. We isolated ourselves somewhat by leaving the European Union. I don't think we should go back in to the European Union, certainly not for the moment. I don't think they particularly want us back. I do not want our country to be any more isolated than it already is. And by the way, as you say, this is not a problem that is confined to the British Isles. This is a problem that Europe faces. We need to work together. I don't want these people coming on the boats. What I'm saying to you is I don't think there are any quick fix solutions. Rwanda was a joke for all sorts of reasons. Do I think we should have a big offshore detention centre? No, I don't. Do I think we should work much more collaboratively with the French or be much more persuasive in the way that we're working with the French? Should Starmer be taking better advantage of apparently a good relationship with Macron? Yes. Are the French trying to punish us for Brexit? Quite possibly. And therefore we need to have as good relations with them as possible. Do I think, by the way, a reform government, which is a possibility, or a reform-led government, I don't think they'll by any stretch of the imagination have an outright majority at the next election, but it is conceivable that they could go into coalition with the Conservatives. Do I think that this small boat problem will vanish? Absolutely not. This is a problem that is incredibly thorny, and sadly, at the moment, I think it's here to stay for a while.
I think you're right. On that, we can agree. Matthew Sadler, it's always a pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Loads more still to come, including 50 volunteer cabbies who have taken our veterans to the seaside for a day of fish and chips, 1940s sing-along, and even an Elvis impersonator. Magnificent. We'll hear from them next. But first, here's your headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Get you up to date with the headlines from the GB newsroom. MPs will vote tonight on Labour's welfare reform bill. Now, dozens are threatening to rebel, even though the government slashed its savings targets. Disability campaigners are warning that 150,000 people could still fall into poverty. 3 former hospital bosses have been arrested in connection with the Lucy Letby case. They're being questioned on suspicion of gross negligent manslaughter. Police say all 3 have been released on bail as inquiries continue. Energy bills drop £11 for 21 million households under Ofgem's new price cap, but experts are warning they may rise again by the winter. Charities are urging families to consider fixed-rate deals. Elon Musk has slammed Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill as utterly insane. He vowed to oust supporters, but the president has hit back, accusing Musk of owing his wealth to government subsidies. And, of course, heat is continuing to hit Europe, with France issuing a rare red alert for extreme temperatures. Parts in Spain and Portugal have been up around 46 degrees, record highs for June. And we're looking at about 34 to 35 degrees today. That could be the peak of the hot conditions, although it's a bit more mixed in the north. Those are your headlines for the moment. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, the heat hasn't been everywhere, but if you're in the southeast, it has been really hot today and oppressively humid. It may be welcome news to hear that things are going to be turning fresher. There is a cold front nearby that's brought a bit of cloud, bit of rain, and behind it there is fresher air coming in, and so temperatures are going to be dropping. But for the time being, still hot and humid across parts of the southeast as we go through the end of the day and through overnight as well. Elsewhere, there's some clouds, some rain, which could be a bit heavy at times across some northern parts of England, southern Scotland, but mainly a east-west split as we go overnight. Clearer weather towards the west, a bit cloudier towards the east, and like I said, still pretty warm and humid in the southeast, but it isn't going to be quite as warm as it was last night. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, eastern parts of Scotland, here it's a cloudy start. There'll be some further rain. That could still be quite heavy at times. Further west, a brighter picture, but a few showers starting to push into the Western Isles already. And similar across Northern Ireland, mostly fine, but a few showers out towards the far west. A west-east split across England and Wales, cloudier towards the east. Outbreaks of rain, which could be quite heavy, brighter, drier towards the west. Then as we go through the day tomorrow, watch out for some heavier bursts of rain pushing into parts of the southeast across Kent into East Anglia. Could be a bit of thunder mixed in with these. Also, some of the rain across eastern England, eastern Scotland could have a bit of thunder mixed in. Otherwise, there'll be further showers feeding in across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but across the rest of England and Wales, actually looking like a fine day. And temperatures, particularly in the southeast, markedly lower than they have been of late, mid-20s at highest, so feeling much more comfortable, really. The worst of the rain clears away towards the east as we go through tomorrow evening, but there will be a few showers continuing across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and thereafter through the rest of the week, well, it is going to be more changeable. There's going to be some wet weather coming in from the northwest, and that could be heavy at times.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Currently, there's congestion on the M1 northbound between junctions 8 and 9 in Hertfordshire, causing a 30-minute slowdown. Drivers in Surrey should note a collision on the M25 clockwise at junction 8, with 2 out of 4 lanes closed. In Cheshire East, the M6 southbound between junctions 17 and 16 is affected by a broken-down vehicle closing 2 lanes. Road users face planned maintenance with diversions along the A48M eastbound from M4 junction 29A St Mellons to the Pound Hill Overbridge. And on the trains, South Western Railway is experiencing major disruptions. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:37. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News, and it's glorious afternoon now as temperatures start to soar. We've got the coolest cash prize of the summer to be won. A totally tax-free £54,321 is up for grabs in our latest Great British Giveaway, and it could all be yours. Here's all the details you need to enter.
The Great British Giveaway is now even greater, with your chance to win our biggest cash prize so far. A totally tax-free £54,321 cash could be yours. Cash that you could spend however you like. It's like having an extra £1,000 each week for a whole year to play with. Imagine what you could do with that. Someone is guaranteed to win this amazing amount of cash, so make sure that someone could be you. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now then, for over 77 years, London's black cab drivers have given back to Britain's bravest, our veterans. And this week, 50 volunteer cabbies will be taking veterans to the seaside for a day of fish and chips, 1940s sing-along, and even an Elvis Presley tribute. God, I wish I was there. Our reporter Charlie Peters is there in Worthing. Charlie, this sounds magnificent. Tell us more.
Oh, Martin, you're missing out, let me tell you. It's been a wonderful day. Gathering in Surrey at 8 a.m. Hundreds of veterans and also taxi drivers, black cabbies coming in to take them down here to the coast in Sussex. And look at this room. There are hundreds of veterans here. Many of them haven't seen each other for years. One man, a veteran, bumped into his mate after 56 years of service. So a very special day indeed. Another man I just spoke to, Martin, John Crocker. He's 101 years old. He served in the Sussex Regiment, and only last year he got his beret back. He was looking after himself until he's 100 years old, got into a nursing home, and they gave him a beret because the local branch of the RBL found out and supported him. So many great people to speak to, Martin, but come outside with me now because I've got someone I can speak to now. England international and Watford FC legend, Luther Blissett, who joins me now. Luther, it's a great pleasure to speak to you today. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm really happy to be here. Well, wonderful weather.
So why are you so keen to support the taxi charity for military veterans? What is it about this day that makes you keep coming back?
Well, we got invited. We're from Forces United, and we run the support group for veterans. And when they rang me and said, would you like to come along on this? I was like, wow, never heard it before. And it was one of the most interesting things, let's say, that I've been asked to do for a while, and they have absolutely loved it. The veterans have come along today and they've absolutely loved it.
Obviously you're no stranger to great teams, being a record appearance holder for Watford. When you speak to military veterans though, it must make you realise that there are stronger teams even than those that you find through sport. These men have fought and served with each other for decades.
That's right, yeah, but the one thing that I can identify and I can really sort of identify with, I should say, is being in a team. You all depend on each other. If you're going to be successful, you need to depend and rely and trust each other. And that's exactly what these guys have shown us how to do it. And in a football team, you do exactly the same thing. So that's what brought me into supporting veterans in the first place, the similarities between what you do as a football team and you know that they go through as well as a team when they go out there to do what they do.
Amazing stories. Charity veterans.
There's some incredible ones, and I saw you find at the end there speaking to the chap that's 101, and that is just amazing. And his granddaughter was saying to me that you know, they put him in a home, and it's given him a lease of life, a new lease of life, because now he's got so much to do and whatever. So you know, it shows there's a lot of life in people if you can put them in the right environment. And this charity has done an amazing thing by bringing them to this, because everybody's absolutely loved it.
Yeah, let's go to those cabbies, because they are incredible people, aren't they?
Yeah,
taking this time to pick them up all over the country for people not just coming from London today. They've travelled very long distances to be here. Very impressive dedication from the taxi drivers.
Oh, it is, yeah. And I think if you go into London and you get in a cab, you understand when they talk about London cabby, that's what they are. They are true English people, British people that love other people and love their community and whatever they can do for veterans or for anybody, they'll do it. And you know, to give up their time and do this is quite amazing, and I think it's a big lesson to the rest of us.
Yeah, just a moment ago we saw 100-year-old Dorothea Barron dancing away to an Elvis impersonator in there.
Incredible.
It does motivate and inspire you just hearing these people and seeing them and what they get up to, doesn't it?
It does, because as you say, the lives that they've led, and now, you know, in the latter years for them to be appreciated and show that appreciation from, you know, the cabbies and everybody, and you know, in a hotel I've seen the staff going out there and dancing and whatever. I think it's just absolute, as a celebration, I think it's incredible, and it's an amazing job that they do.
Luther Bliss, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
My pleasure as well. Thank you very much.
Mate.
Good to meet you.
Likewise. Well, Martin, as you can see, some legends here, and also lots of legends in cap badges, berets and memorabilia of their time in service inside the pier in Worthing, Sussex here today. And what a setting I've got behind me. Beautiful pier, beautiful sunshine and the sea. Well, I said it before, didn't I, Martin? I'll say it again. You've really missed out with this one.
So, Charlie Peters, I've totally got lifestyle envy. I've got to say the taxi charity for military veterans, legends. They're Luther Blissett, one of the great black players of my youth, along with Viv Anderson, Cyril Regis, Laurie Cunningham, Brendan Batson. You're surrounded by legends. You're on the seaside. Charlie Peters, you get all the best gigs. You deserve it, my friend. Thank you very, very much for joining us on the show. Wonderful. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, you could go to Worthing with Charlie Peters, or you could try the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heatwave continues across western and central parts of continental Europe, temperatures widely reaching the mid-30s, and this is likely to trigger some quite severe thunderstorms at times, particularly across Spain, northern parts of Italy, parts of Switzerland. This could bring some quite intense hail, frequent lightning and also some gusty winds. But across southern parts of Italy, parts of Greece, it should remain mostly settled. Plenty of intense sunshine continuing as we head into the weekend, and temperatures widely remaining in the mid-30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Welcome back to Breakfast. Now, experts are warning that lithium suppliers will not keep up with the demand for electric cars.
Yeah, researchers say domestic lithium production could grow as much by about 10 times what it currently is by 2030, but will still fall short of demand.
So this morning we're asking whether Labour's green car policy is unachievable.
This policy tells you everything you need to know about net zero. This isn't about giving people free choices about the technologies they want to use. This is about saying we're going to have mandatory targets. It's a sad indictment on our country if we've just normalised the government making these fundamental decisions for people's lives. The CEBR has warned that this policy might cost the country. That's rigid targets for battery electric vehicles, known as the ZEV mandate. 80% of all vehicles will have to be electric vehicles by 2030, rising to 100% by 2035. And that policy is expected to cost £400 billion to the UK economy. And of course, car makers as well have warned that this policy is not achievable.
The latest stats say 47% of vehicles sold in Britain are now EVs. We're halfway there after just 2 years of the electric mandate. We've another 5 years to go. It's speeding up. And this charge that lithium, we're going to have a shortage of lithium, is nonsense. What it says is that there may be the consumption of lithium is increasing, so the domestic production will not be sufficient, but there's plenty in the world.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:49. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, US President Donald Trump is attending the opening of a temporary migrant detention centre in southern Florida. It's been dubbed the Alligator Alcatraz. It's a naval base where the illegal immigrants will be sent to. Let's take a short listen in now.
With different vendors and thought, why not go straight to our governors and ask them to help us solve this problem? Florida was unique in what they presented to us, and I would ask every other governor to do the exact same thing. This is unique because we can hold individuals here, they can have their hearings, get due process, and then immediately be flown back home to their home countries. And their home countries are welcoming them. They're setting up loans for houses, they've got food assistance, they're helping to facilitate welcoming them home. I just got home from Panama, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras, and they're all excited about getting their individuals back home from the United States. So
and there was a lot of self-deporting. That's
there
one
is.
thing I was actually surprised, but a lot of self-deporting. I flew over the Everglades. We did a little circle. I said, let me see. That's a big piece of land. It took us 25 minutes to fly around. Is there potential for enlargement or additional facilities out here?
There may be. I mean, I think what we're doing is, because this is an important part of Florida, we're using the existing footprint of this airport. So when you guys go over there, you'll see all the beds, the medical, the galley, everything is on the concrete. We're not using any of the other stuff. Now, as you'll see, there's a lot of concrete, so there very well may be. I know Secretary Noem and her team have said as soon as the president departs, we'll be open to start receiving folks. And so we'll see what the tempo is. We do have the 2,000 in Northeast Florida that will open very soon. So it is possible to do. One of the things I think that is exciting about this is we're offering up our National Guard and other folks in Florida to be deputized to be immigration judges. We're working with the Department of Justice for the approvals. I'm sure Pam will approve. But then I'll have a National Guard judge advocate here. Someone has a notice to appear. Biden would tell them to come back in 3 years and appear. Now you'll be able to appear in like a day or two, so they're not going to be detained, hopefully, for all that long. We'll have people here in this facility that can make, it's a bureaucracy. The president's got to deal with the bureaucracy. Now, that Supreme Court ruling was good because that's going to allow him to be able to exercise Article 2 the way founders intended, but you still have bureaucracy. So we want to cut through that so that we have an efficient operation between Florida and DHS to get the removal of these illegals done.
Are you prioritizing going after the worst of the worst, or are you now arresting anyone who is here?
We're doing the worst of the worst always first.
Yes.
And I think it's great government, what we've done. And nobody can ever forget what this group of people, Biden or whoever it was, because it probably wasn't even Biden. I don't think he knew what the hell he was doing. But Biden, whoever it was, what this group of people, a small group that circled the Resolute desk, what they did to this country. Think of it, what your time, all the time you have to waste doing this. It's an unforced error. We had nothing. We had no problem with this. There was never anything like
Okay, that is Donald Trump there with the Florida Governor, Ron DeSantis. Just to repeat what we're seeing on our screens here, that's live pictures from the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport in the Florida Everglades. We can go back. We're trying to get a communication back there, but just so you know, this is an Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention centre that's being repurposed from a transition airport to house, as Donald Trump said, the worst of the worst illegal immigrants will be processed first. Let's get back to Trump.
Crocodiles. They were crocodiles from Africa. They are a step beyond. But no, that was really meant as a joke, but a lot of people liked it, and a lot of people think we should do it, frankly.
The Senate, it appears, is about to vote on your
big, beautiful bill. I hear we're doing well, Ron. I hear we're doing well.
Are you confident this can get
done by the 4th of July? I don't know. Confident. What does confident mean when you're when you have one vote and you have 100 people going to vote? I think so. I think it's going to be the greatest bill ever passed. Even for you, as an example, tremendous amount of Homeland Security money. Tremendous amount. It's going to keep the border secure because, we have them secure now, but we need to build more wall. I built almost 600 miles of wall. We need more wall. And all of that's covered in this bill. This bill is amazing for everybody. It's an amazing bill for Florida, too. Really great for Florida.
You've heard the concerns about the Medicaid cuts, though, Mr. President.
No, we're not going to be playing with Medicaid. Only waste, fraud, and abuse. 11.8 million
Americans could lose their
the
coverage.
Democrats have it wrong.
Promise?
Yeah. Waste, fraud, and abuse. In fact, if you look at what's gone on, we've gone way back. We take care of Medicaid. We take care of Medicare. They will blow Medicare and Medicaid because they have no idea what they're doing. Just like they don't have any idea what they did on the border, they have no idea. Medicaid is in big trouble with the Democrats.
So you can promise anyone who loses their health care coverage that is because of waste, fraud, and abuse?
Waste, fraud, only waste, fraud, and abuse, which is what everybody
Mr.
wants.
President, Russia has about 50,000 troops stationed outside of Sumy in Ukraine. What will you do if Russia authorizes an offensive?
We'll see what happens. I'm watching it very closely.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
About Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit next week, what are you hoping to get out of that? And do you think there'll be any progress?
Well, it's going to be a very quick celebration. We had a great hit. It was a obliteration. Okay, now it turns out it was an obliteration. You know, they demeaned CNN mostly and the New York Times, fake New York Times. They demeaned these great soldiers. They went over there 17 hours flying, and they hit bullseye after bullseye after bullseye. It all blew up. Everybody saw it. Then they get back, and CNN said, well, they did okay, but maybe it wasn't. Let me tell you, it was beyond obliteration. They can't. Nobody can even get down there. The tunnels are busted. Everything fell into the well. It was a total and complete obliteration, and we should celebrate these heroes. And what I'm doing is I'm bringing them, Ron. We're bringing them to Florida or to the White House. I gave them their choice. I think they're going to take the White House.
Probably.
I shouldn't tell you this.
Mr. President, there's going to be a new bill called Make American Elections Great Again.
I love it.
Forcing the U.S. Census Bureau to redo the census to actually get an account of how many Americans with proof of citizenship are in our area, in our country, redistricting some of the House districts. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I'll speak for both of us. We love it. Okay, you're going to like this one. I know all about it. We want to bring our elections back. The election in 2020 was rigged, millions and millions of votes. It had to do with COVID and a lot of things, but it really had to do with their crooked people. The Democrats are very good at cheating on elections. And that's why I said too big to rig. They tried this one too. But after about 9:02, they gave up too many votes. You know, too big to rig. Ron would love it. I would love it. Christie would love it. That's what they have to do. They have to bring it back. And we have to look, you know, Ron, they include anybody that happens to be in your state.
Well, California would lose like 5 seats if they did a fair census. And even beyond that, the Biden census gypped Florida of at least 1 seat. We only got 1 seat in the last census. Are you trying to tell me that Florida only had 1 seat in that? We should have had at least 2. Texas should have had another one. That could be the difference in the House of Representatives and the majority. So I would love for them to redo the census for 26. My legislature will redistrict those lines. We'll get it to where it's fair. But as it's right now, this country is not fairly apportioned. I've got so many more millions of people in Florida that have representation because of that flawed census.
Mr. President, I think it's going to do very well. A lot of people, I don't know if you've heard about it, it's like, it's captivated the country. Everybody wants it. It's going to get in, it's going to pass, and we're going to be very happy.
Elon Musk is ripping into this bill again. Are you concerned that Republicans are going to be swayed by Musk and his money?
No, I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is Doge is going to look at Musk. And if Doge looks at Musk, we're going to save a fortune. Thank you very much, everybody. I don't think you should be playing that game with me.
Mr. President, July 9th tariff guideline.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Mr. President.
And that was Donald Trump with the Florida governor Ron DeSantis at the extraordinarily named Alligator Alcatraz. Just to explain what that is, it's a processing centre for illegal immigrants in part of Donald Trump's clampdown. He said it'll be used for the worst of the worst who will be processed first. It's a former detention facility at the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport in the Florida Everglades, and the Alligator Alcatraz name came because some of the swampland, if you know the area, there are lots of alligators around there. So to give his plan teeth, as it were, he said it's surrounded by alligators. Clearly, this is part of Donald Trump's clampdown on being tough on illegal immigration. This would be an ICE detention centre there in Florida with the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, queried by the media, as you'd expect, about other things. Top of the list was, what about the big, beautiful bill, as it's called, being challenged by Elon Musk? Will the electorate be swayed by Elon Musk? Later in the show, I'll tell you about how Elon Musk is planning to launch his own political party if that bill goes through on day one. Donald Trump seemed to brush that aside. And he said in that bill there will also be 600 miles of extra wall for the Mexican border to the south. He also talked about make American elections great again, a new census of America to prove how many people are there, to stop what he said elections are being rigged. It was too big to rig last time, and he said, myself and Ron DeSantis, we absolutely love it. The idea of making elections clean again, the elections of building more wall on the southern border, the idea of more containment centres like the colourfully named alligator Alcatraz, and brushing aside the contretemps, the falling out with his former buddy, the billionaire Elon Musk. Donald Trump there in his baseball cap, walking away, getting back into the beast, that amazing vehicle, as he's opening yet another detention centre, doing only, remember, what he was elected to do by the American electorate. Now, good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, at 7 p.m. this evening, Keir Starmer faces a make-or-break crunch vote on his welfare bill. You can see there live pictures now from the House of Commons. But with his own backbenchers rebelling and the Tories, the Reform UK Party and the Liberal Democrats uniting against this bill, will the embattled Prime Minister live to fight another day? Or will his leadership be forever tainted, leaving him a dead man walking? And this particular government policy doesn't appear to be going very well, does it?
Serious answer is to smash the gangs. We have to take those gangs down, to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, to smash these gangs.
Yes, another grim landmark has been reached today, with more than 20,000 illegal immigrants reaching British shores this year alone. Keir Starmer promised to smash the gangs, but all he's smashing is records. And the Nissan plant in Sunderland is axing 250 jobs after an astonishing 88% drop in profits for this year. And that's the car giant's worst results in 25 years. Now, with plummeting demand for electric vehicles to blame, is net zero killing the British motor industry? And as we said, with that Donald Trump section there, Elon Musk is threatening to launch his new America Party on day one if Donald Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill is passed into law. The ex-billionaire claims our country needs an alternative to the Uni Party, but could the move throw a lifeline to the dead duck Democrats and let them back into the White House? And that's all coming up in your next hour. Welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. 3 hours now till D-Day, 3 hours till that crunch vote in the Commons on the Labour Party's controversial welfare bill. There's been a backbench rebellion. We've seen the bill watered down to the tune of £2.5 billion. It will now only save a mere £2.5 billion a year from a benefits bill that is set to balloon to £100 billion by the end of the year. And yet, it's been called Dickensian by its critics and slammed as too weak by its critics on the other end of the political spectrum. Stay with us all the way through to that crunch vote. Will the Prime Minister be floored by it, or will he limp through? Nevertheless, will he be mortally wounded and his entire leadership, perhaps his entire government, in peril? Get in touch usual way, gbnews.com/you'll say is the way to do it. But now's your headlines, and here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good afternoon to you. Our headlines: the government has been defending its welfare bill in the Commons ahead of a key vote later, and dozens of Labour MPs are threatening to vote against it, despite Sir Keir Starmer softening the plans last week. Now only new disability benefit claimants would be affected under the revised package, but critics are warning it could still push 150,000 people into poverty. Now, Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary, says it seeks to fix a broken benefit system inherited from the previous Conservative government.
Members opposite left us with a system that incentivises people to define themselves as incapable of work just to be able to afford to live. They then wrote people off without any help or support and then blamed them to grab a cheap headline. The result is 2.8 million people out of work due to long-term sickness.
Meanwhile, the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, has called the plans rushed.
A fundamental and serious programme to reform our welfare system is required, and this bill is not it. This bill is a fudge, and I feel sorry for the Right Honourable Lady. She looks as if she's being tortured. This is a rushed attempt. We all know why this is happening. We all know why this is happening. I'll give way in a moment. We all know why this is happening. This is a rushed attempt to plug the Chancellor's fiscal hole. It is driven not by principle, but by panic. The changes were forced through not because they get more people into work, but because someone in 11 Downing Street made a mistake.
3 former hospital bosses have been arrested in connection with the Lucy Letby case. They're being questioned on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. The senior leaders were in charge at the Countess of Chester Hospital during 2015 and 2016, while Letby, now jailed for murdering 7 babies, was working there. It follows a major police investigation into corporate manslaughter at the hospital. Police say all 3 have been released on bail as their inquiries continue. The UK's longest-running coal case has been solved after a 92-year-old man was jailed for life for the rape and murder of a widow in 1967. Ryan Headley was 34 when he broke into Louisa Dunn's Bristol home and attacked her. A jury found him guilty nearly 6 decades later after new evidence came to light. The judge called it a pitiless and cruel act by a depraved man. Energy bills are falling for 21 million households across the UK, although there are warnings they may not go down much more before winter. The typical monthly bill is £11 less under the Ofgem new price cap, with gas and electricity rates both slightly reduced. But charities say prices are painfully high and families are still budgeting tightly and turning to support schemes. Regulators are urging people to consider fixed deals, which could save around £200 per year. And of course, parts of the UK are experiencing very hot temperatures again today. It could be as high as 36 right now or in the next hour or two as a scorching heat wave continues across the country. It follows a record-breaking start to Wimbledon, where highs of 33.1 were recorded yesterday. The UK Health Security Agency has extended its amber heat health alert to more regions. Forecasters saying that the southeast gets the most intense heat. Showers, though, are expected at some parts of Wales in the north. Those are your latest headlines. I'll be back with more in less than half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Now, what a crunch day we have ahead in politics, because the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is braced for a major rebellion today over the government's flagship welfare bill. You can see there live pictures from the Commons. The debate is rattling on. Now, there, of course, is a crunch vote in the House of Commons around about 7 p.m. tonight, we believe, where around 50 of his own MPs are expected to vote against the legislation that is currently being debated in what could be, looking like the largest rebellion of the Premiership's embattled term so far. And meanwhile, the Prime Minister has told his Cabinet today that there have been a significant number of achievements over the past 12 months in office, highlighting 3 trade deals, 4 interest rate cuts, breakfast clubs and free school meals. Now, this is, of course, amid record low polling ratings. Well, I'm joined in the studio by the twin delights of GB News political editor Chris Hope and the Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride. Gentlemen, welcome to the studio. Chris, let's start with you. So around about 3 hours now till the first vote. What are the scores on the doors? It was 120 rebels, it went down to 50. What's the latest number of Labour rebels, and at what cost did it take to buy them off? Let's face it, a significant watering down of this benefits bill has been done by Keir Starmer's government.
Well, here's the amendment. 39 MPs signing it overnight from Labour Party, probably going towards 43, 45 by tonight. We'll wait and see. The vote's at 7 o'clock, and the second vote on the actual second reading is 7:20, not 7:50, as we were informed earlier. A week ago, it was a £5 billion saving to the benefits bill. Now it's to a £2.5 billion saving. That is too much for someone on the Labour backbenches. In the past half an hour, Richard Burden, Richard Bergen is a left-wing Labour MP. He's saying go back to the drawing board to Keir Starmer and Liz Kendall. Others too upset about it. Rachel Maskell, surprisingly, Maskell describing it as Dickensian welfare cuts. And some would say wherever we are now, I wouldn't say these cuts are Dickensian, but there we are. That's how someone on the left are describing it. There's reports right now, though, of possible changes, even more changes at the dispatch box to get this through. Two Labour MPs have told the Iron newspaper that the eligibility criteria for these PIP payments could be pushed back until after this review by Stephen Timms comes out. I can see Mel Stride rolling his eyes. He's the money man. He knows that would delay the saving. Even the £2.5 billion saving may not come forward in this next financial year, but sometime afterwards. That could be a problem, I think, for those worried about tax increases. So big worries, I think. 39 so far, rising to 45. A big bloody nose in a week when this government should be celebrating its one-year anniversary since that huge landslide last year.
So they're calling it Dickensian. Mel Stride, no doubt you'd like to have great expectations of defeating it.
We have very low expectations, I'm afraid, of everything this government does, Martin.
I mean, the chances are this will limp over the line, the metrics will be there, but the Conservative position, can you spell out to us how you'll be voting? You're voting against it. On what basis?
So, really on two bases. It's not principled welfare reform. You have to be thoughtful and do it properly if you're going to reform something that's going to affect millions of people. Firstly, it's not going to save enough money. The welfare bills are still going to be spiralling ever upwards. And the second thing is, it's actually going to be very unfair to some vulnerable people who are going to get caught up in the sheer bluntness of the way in which they pulled at this lever at the last minute to try and make the savings. And make no mistake, what has actually happened here is they've mismanaged the economy. So Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has blown all that fiscal headroom she had. In order to try and patch it up, she turned around at the very last minute and said to DWP, find me £5 billion. That's not what should drive a welfare policy. It should not be scrabbling around for money at the last minute as they've been forced into. It should be proper principled reform. And on that basis, we vote against.
Is it worth pointing out that the PIP benefits payouts have simply gone through the roof, and that started during COVID, started during the Conservative government's watch. Part of the problem is that people aren't processed face-to-face anymore. We've seen astonishing data out today. There are now huge clusters of people claiming to have anxiety and depression in the Welsh Valleys, in Merseyside, in County Durham. It has to be said, these are Labour voting areas, and Liz Kendall said none of those claims will be looked into. There'll be no retrospective looking back at what clearly could be wide open to abuse. So on the one hand, this problem did start on the Conservative watch, but surely we need to be clamping down on these claims and thoroughly and vigorously cross-examining them all.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to have a proper assessment process and so on. When we were in power, and I was Secretary of State at Work and Pensions, we had actually started a consultation on how to reform PIP. And my concern was that PIP was far too blunt as a benefit. It was a cash transfer payments to lots of people with lots of different conditions, some of whom would be much better, for example, if it's a mental health condition, getting some kind of support rather than simply cash year in, year out. That's the way you fundamentally reform benefits, to do two things. Firstly, target appropriate support on those that need it, but secondly, get the bills down, because the welfare bill, including with PIP, is spiralling ever upwards.
Did you regret, though, as a Tory government, for taking away those in-person questions on PIP? That seems to be identified by the big spike after 2019. We know why it happened, because of COVID. So it's allowed people to get away with it.
That happened back when the pandemic was on, when it was physically impossible.
But that was on your watch, Mel.
Well, not when I was Secretary of State, as it happened, but nonetheless, it's hard to see how you could have face-to-face assessments during lockdown, for example, where it was illegal to actually meet up in that way. But, yes, that is part of the issue. But it all comes back to fundamental reform. Yes. And all of these problems come back to the fact that Rachel Reeves suddenly needed to save some money at the last minute. DWP were told to find £5 billion. That is not the basis.
And writing checks on the backs of the people who can't afford it.
You should not be reforming welfare on that basis.
Just right now, so it's breaking now in Westminster. We look like the government will offer the implementation of the 4-point threshold, which is how you calculate PIP payments, after the Timms review. Do you know what that might cost?
So I don't know. I mean, they originally started at about $5 billion in savings. It's fallen to $2.5 billion on the current concessions.
It might mean less savings.
What matters is where it lands at the end of something called the forecast period. So rather than what happens in the early years of the change, but you've got to assume hundreds of millions of pounds
being cut. So right now that could be.
At the end of the day, Chris, all your viewers need to know is this bungling, this chaos, is going to lead to more tax rises in the autumn. So taxpayers up and down the country working hard are going to pay the price for all that we're discussing, I'm afraid.
Sort of the Dickensian link on your screen now, the ghost of Christmas past. Jeremy Corbyn speaking from the backbenchers. No doubt he'll be against this. Bizarrely, he'll be in the same position as the Conservative Party, same position as Nigel Farage's Reform UK, because he'll be voting this down. Can I ask you, Mel Stride, to pass comment on something that came out of Number 10 today? We heard there have been significant achievements in this first year of Labour government as they approach their birthday party on Saturday. We've learned they're not having a party. They don't want to even celebrate it. What significant achievements, Mel Stride, do you think Sir Keir Starmer has achieved?
I can't think of many, Martin. I can think of the fact that we were told today that 20,000 people have crossed as illegal migrants since the start of this year.
They blame you for that. They blame you for that.
Well, that was a record. No, they got rid of Rwanda and the deterrent, and that wrecked their one policy that would have had some impact. Look at what they've done to the economy. They've destroyed growth. They've taxed businesses up to the hilt. They've stoked inflation. They've kept interest rates higher for longer. We've now got a national debt, the servicing costs on which are $100 billion a year. That's twice what we spend on defence.
They say that.
Look at welfare. Look what they've done to farmers. You know, look what they did to the pensioners with the winter fuel payment, taking that away. When Lucy Powell, the leader of the House, actually said that if they hadn't done it, there would be a run on the pound, apparently.
I don't think they were the kind of significant achievements Sir Keir Starmer was talking about, do you, Chris?
Over the place.
Well, looking at those achievements, they say they've overseen 4 interest rate cuts. They've overseen billions.
But there should be more interest rate cuts, Chris. That's the whole point.
Tipped into
National Health Service higher for longer.
Breakfast clubs, so it goes on. Free school meals.
Right, gentlemen, back to tonight's vote. So it's looking most likely Mel Stride is going to limp over the line. But will it leave Sir Keir Starmer perhaps fatally bruised? His authority has been significantly challenged here. Will there be people smelling blood? Andy Burnham is on manoeuvres. Now Angela Rayner seems to be on manoeuvres. Is this, do you think, the beginning of the end of Sir Keir Starmer's premiership?
I think this is an incredibly difficult moment for the Labour Party, because when people rebel, particularly at scale, once you've got the taste of it once, it becomes easier to do the second time. There's kind of blood in the water. And look at the people that have rebelled. They're not all the usual suspects. I mean, Meg Hillier, perfectly reasonable moderate who put down that reasoned amendment to kill this bill initially. These are the kind of people. And I think it also shows that when it comes to controlling spending, because this is what this is primarily about, it's about trying to control spending, they have failed. And what are they going to do, these backbenchers, the next time that there's a tough decision to take to get on top of burgeoning government spending, which we know generally is far too high? They're all going to run for the hills. They've had a taste for this now, and they'll come back for more.
And the worry right now is that those savings are getting reduced even smaller. But if they do make these changes at the dispatch box, I'd love to find out how much that's worth. If it's worth £100 million fewer savings now because of the deals done today to get it through, that's a big worry.
If I might get a bit technical for a second, we've got the fiscal headroom, which is what she's got to play with. Which is 9 to 10 billion. We've got the budget in the autumn, where she's got to make sure the numbers add up. She's already spent, it appears, 2.5 she's lost on the welfare stuff, 1.25 billion on the reinstatement of the winter fuel payment. There will be some bad growth numbers in the OBR's forecast and various other things. She could easily have lost all of that headroom. Now, if she's done that, which is what she did last time from the autumn, remember, that leads to tax increases. And then you get into this spiral of increasing taxes, slowing down the economy, less money available. Oh, we got to go back for more taxes, slows down the economy. And that's where you don't want to end up. And I'm afraid that we are heading in that direction.
OK, well, all eyes on that crunch vote at 7 p.m. Mel Stride, Show Chancellor, pleasure to have your company, as ever.
Great pleasure.
Chris Hope, thank you very much, as ever. Superb stuff. Now, as the temperatures start to soar, because look, Chris Hope's in his pith suit is dressed for the Raj. We've got the coolest cash prize of the summer to be won thus far, a totally tax-free £54,321. It's up for grabs in our latest Great British giveaway, and it could all be yours. And here's all the details you need to enter.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. Well, it could be yours with our greatest Great British Giveaway cash prize so far. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like, giving you the chance to have a year full of top treats. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. So make sure you're in the draw for another chance to win £54,321 cash. Text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, the Nissan plant in Sunderland is axing 250 jobs now with plummeting demand for electric vehicles to blame. Is net zero killing the British motor industry? And next, another grim landmark has been reached today with more than 20,000 illegal immigrants reaching British shores this year alone. Keir Starmer promised to smash the gangs, but all he's smashing is records. And that's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company. Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too. Because when the kettle's on, we're on. That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for. Every morning from 6 a.m. Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. Time is 4:23 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, just to let you know, Donald Trump is attending the opening of a migrant detention centre in Florida. And let's cross live there now.
They actually did all the work. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. Thank you guys for doing this. Thank you for your partnership.
You had how many days to do it?
We actually just had 24 hours.
24 hours.
Yeah.
So just to let you know, that's a detention centre. It's a repurposed airport, a transition airport. It's called the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport. That's in the Florida Everglades. Now, this is a purpose-built immigrant containment centre, and it's been dubbed the Alligator Alcatraz. Now, that colourful name has come from the fact it's in the Florida Everglades, and there are quite a few swamps around there, if you know that part of the world, and there are a lot of alligators. I think Donald Trump's trying to make it sound like it's surrounded by alligator-infested waters. He's there with the governor of Florida, that is Ron DeSantis, basically saying they're turning this into a immigrant and customs enforcement containment centre, and it's going to be operational, they said, within days. An example of how this government can take an existing facility, repurpose it to house illegal immigrants for processing and deportation back to their countries. Perhaps the kind of thing we can only dream of in this country. RAF Wethersfield and others in the United Kingdom never got anywhere near this level of quick detail, quick operation. Clearly, it's all part of Donald Trump's plan to clamp down on illegal immigrants. And talking of which, today, back here in Britain, more bad news for the Prime Minister. As more than 20,000 illegal immigrants have now crossed the English Channel so far this year alone. Now, that's, of course, is despite the government's best efforts to smash the gangs. The grim milestone figure of over 20,000 was reached at 2 a.m. this morning, and this when another Border Force vessel arrived in Dover Harbour with 60 migrants on board, and the figure is a staggering 50% higher than at this point last year. Let's speak now with the former Immigration Minister, Kevin Foster. Kevin, the numbers go through the roof. It is now the tally, we understand it, 343 additional illegals have arrived today. The milestone now, 20,326, a 50% increase year on year. The Prime Minister promised to smash the gangs. All his smashing is the record book.
Absolutely, Martin. And I expect we can probably diarise sometime later this month to be talking about it going through 30,000 at the rates of arrivals we are seeing. And as you touched on already, this is the highest rate of arrivals we've seen at this point in any year since the small boat crisis began. It's a clear sign that smash the gangs, you know, a great slogan for a general election campaign, but not a real strategy for government, just simply isn't working. The government needs to look at a wider strategy across all the areas, from what attracts people to do this, to how they're processed, to then how they're removed, alongside prosecuting the gangs involved in this work. But in many cases, they just seem to be doubling down on what their strategy already is, and that just isn't working.
Now, it's worth pointing out, of course, Kevin Foster, that when the Conservative Party were in power since the small boats crisis began in 2018, it was also, let's face it, a bit of a disaster. Rishi Sunak hung by his own petard when he promised to stop the boats. Of course, he couldn't, and that did for your government, in part, a large part of it, I would countenance. But to today, there doesn't seem to be any slowdown in this tide. In fact, it's going up. What needs to be done, Kevin Foster? Of course, you no doubt say we need a deterrent like Rwanda, but look at these pictures on our screens now. Illegal immigrants simply up to their knees in water, not a copper in sight. Nobody on the French side seems to be lifting a finger to stop it. Is it time to stop sending money? Stop Le Dosh.
Well, I think, Martin, what we need is not just having Rwanda as part of it is a deterrent, and yes, that would have had an impact, and we'd seen numbers start to fall, but it's looking at the whole process we have. In fact, what we've just seen featured in the United States, you know, how you, for example, when people arrive, what you do with them, how you hold them, how you make sure you process them quickly and then look to remove them. And by the way, it's not just Donald Trump doing that. Greece has done that with large accommodation centres. You referred to a couple of the plans that have been in the past. Again, those sorts of plans need to be driven forward. Reviewing our courts. Once you've actually decided you want to remove someone, how quickly can you do that? And that's when issues like the ECHR and the famous Article 8 right to a chicken nugget start coming into play. What changes should be made to our laws to make that more possible? And then, yes, working with our neighbours, because if we could return people to France, that would end this very quickly. Although some of the deals being talked about seem to involve us potentially taking people one way for sending people over back, which could undermine that idea. And I know also other countries in Europe, like Italy and Greece, have objected to that idea. So it's yet to be seen. Actually, France could push ahead with that if that's what the UK wanted to do. So we do have to have a general approach to this. There's not just one solution, but we can certainly see that just saying smash the gangs isn't working.
I mean, this notion of one in, one out, I mean, a lot of people watching this show would say it should be none in and all out. The notion that we can deport somebody who comes here illegally, which, by the way, the French patently failed to stop them coming, in return, we have to take an asylum seeker from France as some kind of tit-for-tat deal, shows how broken this system is. It's just time to admit the French is no friend of ours when it comes to controlling immigration. There's nothing in it for them, apart from £500 million a year.
Well, I think, Martin, they actually need to look at the impact this is having in the north of France. Lawlessness, criminality, shootings, stabbings. There's a lot of people around the Pas-de-Calais who are absolutely fed up with the criminality this has brought to France. It's not just residents in Dover who suffer the impact of this, it's residents in and around Calais. People who can't store a boat without having to check that someone's not in it. People who can't drive a lorry in the air without it being attacked. People seeing absolute criminality in their communities. And it's really time that those on the French side actually see that resolving this for us also is about resolving those problems for them. I'm not sure President Macron will do that, but perhaps as we come closer to a French presidential election, there'll be much more of a drive that actually, why is France happy to host this lawlessness in its territory? And we're actually working together with us, not on a one in, one out, but perhaps working together with us, that someone who shouldn't be coming to our country, who has spurned the chance to claim asylum in their country, is being removed perhaps to a third country or to be removed home. That's something actually that both of us could work on, and that should make quite a difference to this scenario. Whereas I think a one in, one out arrangement, well, what happens if 10 of us are in a boat and some of us, go, so a few of our friends stay? Do our friends who apply get to come because we went in a boat? Could be a really bizarre incentive created.
Yeah, it's an utter French farce, and I think you're right, Kevin Foster. Let's just set a date for when that 30,000 tally is reached, barring a miracle. Kevin Foster, former immigration minister, thank you very much for joining me today on GB News. Always a pleasure. Thank you. And lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including the Nissan plant in Sunderland, which is axing 250 jobs after an incredible 88% drop in profits in the past year. And that's the car giant's worst results in 25 years. Is it just time to face that with plummeting demand for electric vehicles to blame? Is net zero killing the British motor industry? That's coming soon. But first, here's your latest news headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
And the headlines from the GB newsroom. 3 former hospital bosses have been arrested in connection with the Lucy Letby case. They're being questioned on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. Police say all 3 have been released on bail as inquiries continue. MPs will vote later on Labour's welfare reform bill. Dozens are threatening to rebel, even though the government watered down its reform plans. Disability campaigners, though, are warning 150,000 people could still fall into poverty. Energy bills dropped by £11 for some 21 million households under Ofgem's new price cap, but experts are warning they may rise again in the winter. Charities are urging families to consider fixed deals. And the heat's continuing to grip Europe. France has issued a rare red alert for extreme temperatures. Parts of Spain and Portugal have hit record June highs of 46 degrees. And here, well, something in the mid-30s, around 35 degrees, although conditions are to cool as we get later into the week. Those are your headlines for the moment. More news at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello again, I'm here with the GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, the heat hasn't been everywhere, but if you're in the southeast, it has been really hot today and oppressively humid. It may be welcome news to hear that things are going to be turning fresher. There is a cold front nearby that's brought a bit of cloud, bit of rain, and behind it there is fresher air coming in, and so temperatures are going to be dropping. But for the time being, still hot and humid across parts of the southeast as we go through the end of the day and through overnight as well. Elsewhere, there's some clouds, some rain, which could be a bit heavy at times across some northern parts of England, southern Scotland, but mainly a east-west split as we go overnight. Clearer weather towards the west, a bit cloudier towards the east, and like I said, still pretty warm and humid in the southeast, but it isn't going to be quite as warm as it was last night. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, eastern parts of Scotland, here it's a cloudy start. There'll be some further rain. That could still be quite heavy at times. Further west, a brighter picture, but a few showers starting to push into the Western Isles already. And similar across Northern Ireland, mostly fine, but a few showers out towards the far west. A west-east split across England and Wales, cloudier towards the east. Outbreaks of rain, which could be quite heavy, brighter, drier towards the west. Then as we go through the day tomorrow, watch out for some heavier bursts of rain pushing into parts of the southeast across Kent into East Anglia. Could be a bit of thunder mixed in with these. Also, some of the rain across eastern England, eastern Scotland could have a bit of thunder mixed in. Otherwise, there'll be further showers feeding in across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but across the rest of England and Wales, actually looking like a fine day. And temperatures, particularly in the southeast, markedly lower than they have been of late, mid-20s at highest, so feeling much more comfortable, really. The worst of the rain clears away towards the east as we go through tomorrow evening, but there will be a few showers continuing across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And thereafter, through the rest of the week, well, it is going to be more changeable. There's going to be some wet weather coming in from the northwest, and that could be heavy at times.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Motorists on the M39 westbound should prepare for delays due to maintenance, requiring caution and additional travel time. The A48 eastbound experiences restrictions from junction 29A, with road closures and diversions around the Pound Hill overbridge. In Luton, a collision on the M1 southbound between junctions 11 and 10 closed one of 4 lanes, with conditions normalising by 5:15. In Kent, a collision on the M25 anti-clockwise at junction 2 is causing disruption with 1 lane closed. And on the trains, South Western Railway reports major disruption. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back, 4:36. Now, Donald Trump is attending the opening of a migrant detention centre in Florida. Let's listen in.
They have the information about voluntary departure. They have the ability. Obviously, you guys are funding that because it's a lot cheaper to do it that way. So even if they get brought to the front doorstep here, they still have an opportunity to just go back voluntarily. And then this way they're not...
Let's say they get in here like, hey, I want to stay here, I want to go back.
We can put them on a plane that day and take them home. We'll buy their plane ticket, go home, and then they get the chance to come back legally. If they wait and say we're not going to do that,
they can come back legally after a period. Mr. President, you've talked recently about the idea of finding some way to get farm workforce and service sector workforce, and I think you've discussed somehow a program of people leaving on a sponsorship and coming right back. Can you give us a little more detail about that and why, in the view of some hardliners, it's not amnesty?
We take care of our farmers and hotel workers and various other people, and we're working on it right now, and Ron's going to be involved, and you're involved already. So we have a case, a lot of cases where ICE will go into a farm, and these are guys working there for 10, 15 years, no problem. The farmers know them. We're going to put, it's called farmer responsibility or owner responsibility, where they're going to be largely responsible for these people. And they know these people. They've worked on the farms for 15 years, and all of a sudden so I have a great, Ron does, Christy does, we have a great feeling for the farmer and for others in the same position. And we're going to give them responsibility for people. And we're going to have a system of signing them up so they don't have to go. They can be here legally. They can pay taxes and everything else. They're not getting citizenship, but they get other things. And the farmers need them to do the work. Without those people, you're not going to be able to run your farm.
Mr. President, you and the governor tangled pretty hard in the 2024 election. You stand here now. Yeah, you stand here now as partners on this effort. How would you describe the relationship, and what future does Governor DeSantis have?
I think it's a 10. Maybe 9-9, because there might be a couple of little wounds. So maybe it's 9-9. I think we have a 10. We get along great.
Well, the thing about it is, I endorsed him immediately in January 2024. I raised one of his PACs millions and millions of dollars, and obviously we saved him a lot of money in Florida because Florida was a deep red state. He didn't even have to do a rally in Florida, whereas 2016 and 20, this was like ground zero. And so we've been, really happy to do that. And then we've worked very well on this and other issues, with Florida. And you can call him at any time, and he wants to be helpful for governors. I mean, I can tell you that. We did Hurricane Helene last year. You didn't hear from the president at the time then. But with President Trump, we know immediately. You just make the phone call.
As a follow-up question, I'm sorry, like another thing you inherited. How firm are you going to be with Netanyahu about ending the war in Gaza?
Very firm, very firm. But he wants it too. I will say, he's coming here next week. He wants to end it too. We had a tremendous success with Iran. They won't have me. Somebody said, "When are you going to sign?" I said, "Sign? They are so bombed out." Did you see the report issued this morning? The place was decimated. It'll be years before anybody even gets down there. So that's not a priority, but we'll have a report and we'll have whatever we want. We'll get whatever we want from Iran. And I think, and I hope they want to have a good country. They have massive sanctions right now, biting sanctions. It's going to be very hard for them to do anything with those sanctions. And I look forward to maybe there'll be a time when we get along with them and they can rebuild their country.
Is there a point where you tell Netanyahu, like, you gotta end this now, you gotta strike a deal?
Well, he wants to. I can tell you he wants to, and I think we'll have it. I think we'll have a deal next week. That's what I think.
Mr. President, do you intend to announce your pick for successor to Jay Powell earlier than say, or as early as say this summer or this fall?
Will I do something about who it's going to be?
Yes.
I don't know. Hey, he'd be a good candidate. You might do him. She'd be a good candidate too. Anybody would be better than Jay Powell. No, he's causing us a fortune because he keeps the rate way up. I think it's Trump derangement syndrome personally, but we have a very strong country. We're the strongest country. Look, our country right now is at a level that we haven't seen for 40, 50 years. What we're doing now is nobody's seen anything like it. I told you, I was in the Middle East. The King of Saudi Arabia said to me very strongly, he said, "You know what? A year ago you had a dead country. Now you have the hottest country in the world." We do. We have the hottest country in the world. Thank you very much.
When are we going to see that exemption for farmers? And what about other
We'll be seeing it over the next couple of years.
What about construction and other industries?
Also, we'll kill those type of industries.
Will Kilmore Abrego Garcia be the first inmate here?
Okay, and that was Donald Trump there, President of the United States, talking at an immigrant containment camp being purpose-built. That was also the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis. It's called Alligator Alcatraz, and you'll see if you're watching on TV there to explain to our radio listeners, Donald Trump wearing a baseball cap on it. The Gulf of America, it said. Now, of course, where the Everglades are in Florida, the ocean to the west was formerly called the Gulf of Mexico. Donald Trump renamed it the Gulf of America, trolling his opponents with a baseball cap. But the point is, they're building an immigrant containment center from scratch in days to deal with a problem. They're going to fly people in there, we were told, and if they decide before they go in there to be flown out, then they can. If not, they'll go inside, they'll be processed, and most likely be deported. A quick solution to a problem. And there we go, Donald Trump. If anything else happens, we'll cross back live to there. Now, moving on. Is net zero killing jobs? Because the Japanese car maker Nissan is planning to cut 250 jobs at its Sunderland factory, which is around 4% of its 6,000-strong workforce, through a voluntary redundancy scheme as they struggle to boost profits amid a slow demand for electric vehicles. So is net zero, not Brexit, killing the British motor industry. Well, I speak now with the head of policy at the Global Warming Foundation, Harry Wilkinson. Harry, so we're seeing a cutback at the jobs in Sunderland, and the blame is squarely on the shoulders of electric vehicles. Electric vehicles nobody seems to want.
Well, good afternoon, Martin. The bad news keeps coming when it comes to net zero. It is economic suicide. The GMB have calculated that 200,000 jobs have been lost in the manufacturing sector since 2010. So unfortunately, we are learning the hard way that if we increase energy costs for a whole range of businesses, that is complete disaster, complete catastrophe. We've seen Port Talbot Steelworks close. We see Scunthorpe facing closure. We've seen the Nippon Electrical Glass Factory close. We've seen Moorcroft Pottery close. This is devastating. And of course, electric vehicles is another area where the government's just hoped and prayed that people will buy these things. And then when demand isn't matching up to that, this facility is now facing serious problems. They don't understand how markets work. You can't just hope that people will buy things. You have to allow competition to deliver the products and services that people want to use. So this is unfortunately no surprise. The unions have been waking up to this, which is encouraging. They've said that actually the government is placing the oil and gas industry on a cliff edge. They certainly are doing that. The unions, unfortunately, were sold a myth for many years that they could have all these green jobs, which just haven't been materializing. Now, belatedly, but thankfully, they are waking up to the risks of net zero for our key manufacturing industries. And let's remember, the jobs that we're losing are high-valued, high-paid, skilled jobs in working-class areas that the governments of all colours say are exactly the kind of jobs that we need. What they're being replaced with, if at all, is bureaucratic jobs, companies monitoring their own emissions, bureaucrats monitoring companies' emissions. These aren't adding value to our economy, they're taking value out of the economy. So this is a recipe for economic decline. It's a straitjacket that we're placing on our economy, and it's devastating to see.
Harry, now, of course, all of us want a cleaner planet, all of us want cleaner air, but the existing clean burn technology is already achieving that. It's worth bearing in mind as well that Nissan is the largest employer in Sunderland, and of course these are Labour heartlands, Labour areas. Do you think, using the pun here, when the rubber meets the road, when reality bites, will the parliamentary class wake up to the fact that the zealotry of net zero is costing jobs, it's costing jobs in their own constituencies? And do you think there'll be a policy shift on this, or do you think they're simply too wedded to the church of net zero?
I certainly hope so. And it's important to state that decarbonisation, you know, when it is led by markets and when it's led by consumer choices, when it's led by products becoming more energy efficient, as much decarbonisation has been, or whether it's been gas replacing coal in the electricity system, the shale gas revolution in America driving lots of emissions reductions there. So there are a whole range of emissions.
Okay, Harry Wilkinson, I'm afraid I have to interrupt because that man Donald Trump is talking again. We need to cross back to Florida.
Not exactly luxury. He's made a fortune. I want to thank Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem and Florida Attorney General James Uthmire. Where is James? Where is he? You do a very good job. I hear good things. I hear good things about you from Ron too. No, you really do. He's even a good-looking guy. That guy's got a future, huh? Good job, James. I hear you did really, really fantastic. Worked hard. You're like in the construction business for a few days, right? Huh? Congratulations for all the hard work and to make this facility possible. It's amazing. Thanks as well to Florida Agricultural Commissioner Wilton Simpson. Where is Wilton? Where are you, Will? Hi, Wilton. Been a long time. Thank you. Congressman Byron Donalds. Where's Byron? Hi, Byron. How are you? Good. Florida Speaker of the House, Daniel Perez. Daniel? Daniel, thank you, Daniel. Why, you didn't want to sit up here with us, Daniel?
Executive Director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, Kevin Guthrie. Hi, Kevin. Good job. Acting Director of ICE, Todd Lyons. Todd, great job. And Senator Joe Gruters. He is a great guy. Where is Joe? We love Joe.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
Welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Joe is great. With the help of those incredible Border Patrol agents, we now have the lowest level of daily border crossings ever recorded. As you know, last month, the month of May, just got released 2 days ago, the number of illegal aliens into the United States was zero. Zero. Even I find that hard to believe. That somebody must have gotten in, I think. I don't know, but they say zero. And the people that count them are radical left Democrats. So when a radical left Democrat tells me it's zero, I believe him. But there's still much work to do. In the 4 years before I took office, Joe Biden allowed 21 million people, that's a minimum, I think it was much higher than that, illegal aliens to invade our country. He invaded our country just like a military would invade. It's tougher because they don't wear uniforms. You don't know who they are. More than the populations of New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston, Phoenix, and Philadelphia combined. That's what came into our country from prisons, from mental institutions, from street gangs, drug dealers. It's disgusting. This enormous country-destroying invasion has swamped communities nationwide with massive crime, crippling costs, and burdens far beyond what any nation could withstand. No nation could withstand what we did, and we're in the process of doing it, but we have some great people doing it now, and you see them up here with me. But it's, I'd call it like an unforced era. It's sort of like men and women's sports. It's sort of like transgender for everybody. How could they have done this to our country? And we're never going to forget it. Last year, 15% of all the hotel rooms in New York City were used to house illegal aliens at costs that they never got for luxury. They never got this much for luxury people coming in from the wealthiest places on earth. They made more money with the illegal immigrants, with many rooms costing more than $300 a night, 6 times the rent of a typical American family. In Denver, Colorado, the city was forced to cut $10 million from its police and fire department budget as part of a $90 million plan to house illegal aliens. And it's a population that's growing and growing and destroying Denver and growing. And again, it's destroying Denver. And it's destroying many other cities, too. Likewise, one of the city's largest hospital system is drowning in unpaid medical bills, unpaid in the billions, after their emergency rooms were flooded with tens of thousands of illegals, leading to the closure of critical services. And these are really critical services. They can't even keep them open for American patients. The American patients were treated worse than any illegal immigrant. In Los Angeles, 1 in every 4 students in the public school system is from a household headed by an illegal, and most of them don't speak English, so they're in a school system, and they don't have interpreters, they don't have anything, they don't speak English. What a mess, what a mess. Unforced error, all these people allowed to come in. The United States is now spending $78 billion a year on translation. Okay, think of that, $78 billion a year on translation, and smaller numbers on special education programs for non-English speakers in our public schools. So $78 billion, I think that's not a mistake. I would say $1 million maybe, hundreds of thousands of dollars, $78 billion, Joe, on translators and non-English speaking work. Federal government, the Justice Department, it's more than twice the cost of maintaining the United States Justice Department, what we're spending on translation and other things to help. In total, the average illegal alien costs American taxpayers an estimated $70,000. That's each, $70,000. I think that number is even low. If you care about balancing the budget, the single most impactful step we can take is to fully reverse the Biden migration invasion. One of the worst invasions we've ever had. We've never had an invasion like this. We've had invasions, but we've taken care of them. We've never had an invasion like this. And it's with us. And we have some very bad people out there looking to do big harm. That's why the One Big Beautiful Bill includes funding for 3,000 new Border Patrol officers and 10,000 new ICE agents. And I've gotten to know the Border Patrol and ICE very well. Unlike Kamala, she was the border czar, but she never saw the border. She never made one phone call. She was some border czar. She would have been some president. Probably would have been slightly better than Biden, though. I had to run against both of them, you know? The one guy, it's like a fighter. You knock out the one guy who's doing badly, then they put somebody else in. But fortunately, she was a stiff also. Otherwise, I would have been very angry. I would have been extremely angry. The heroes of ICE will also help round up and remove members of the savage drug cartels, which are coming back into our country. And we got them out. Now, some of them came back in. We just got them out again. And that's going to be a vicious cycle. But these are foreign gangs. They're horrendous people, killers, that have infiltrated our territory, including 8 which we have designated as foreign terrorist organizations, which gives us a lot more power for speed and getting them out much easier. And we had a great court victory, as you know, on Friday that allows us to do what we have to do from the Supreme Court of the United States. In 5 months, my administration has already arrested over 2,700 members of the murderous Venezuelan gang known as Tren de Aragua, including a pack of these sadistic animals arrested last month with over 280 guns. And these are guns of the latest caliber. These are guns that were made over the last period of less than a year, getting brand new guns, the latest and the greatest. Every day, our brave law enforcement officers are hunting down and deporting migrant criminals who have committed heinous crimes, including more than 13,000 murders, 11,888 to be exact, but I'd probably say the 13,000 is right also. Think of it, 11,888, and more than half of them, they committed more than one murder. So, Ron, many of them are out of here already, but it's still it's a hell of a number to be confronted with. Just this year, ICE agents in Miami have apprehended illegals with arrests for murder, kidnapping, rape, child sexual abuse, and arson, people of the worst order. We're getting these monsters out of the United States, out of Florida, out of all the places that they're in. And on January 20th, I signed an executive order empowering governors and state police to be deputized to enforce federal immigration laws, and Ron's already taken advantage of it. It's a tremendous advantage for the states. Most of them are doing it. Actually, the blue states tend not to do it. Even a couple of them have, though. And I want to express my tremendous thanks to the state of Florida for embracing this opportunity and being a true partner. They've worked so well with the federal government. It's been just a beautiful, beautiful partnership. So, Ron, I'd like to thank you personally. You are my friend, and you'll always be my friend. And we may have some skirmishes even in the future. I doubt it, but I will always come back because we just seem to, we have blood that seems to match pretty well. We have a relationship that's been a very strong one for a long period of time, and I appreciate it, very much appreciate it. And also, Secretary Noem, I'd like to say, have you say a few words. You have been unbelievable, the job you've done. You and our favorite person, Tom Homan, have done, and your whole staff, because it's a lot of people, and Tom acknowledges it all the time. He respects you so much. He respects the staff that you both built. And you're really doing one of the great jobs. And it was great that you could work with Ron in Florida so well, built such a great facility. So please say a few words. Thank you very much.
I don't know if this will work. Well, thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I want to thank you for putting the safety and the security of the American people first, and the way that you never lose focus on making sure that America stays our priority and that the families that live here get the chance to grow up and to raise their children in communities that are safe and that give them an opportunity to pursue the American dream. This facility here is a fantastic representation of what can happen when all of government works together and when it's accountable to the taxpayers and to the citizens that live here. The president signed an executive order that allowed us to build partnerships with states and with local law enforcement officers, which is exactly how things should function in this country. More power, more authority given to people locally so that they can take control of their own destiny. And so we have already been working under the 287G program to deputize law enforcement officers, whether they be state highway patrol, local sheriff's departments in all of our states, and allow them to go out with our ICE officers, our border patrol officers, and make sure that we're getting the worst of the worst off of the streets. We also recognize that as we've been doing that and returning people back to their home countries, that we need detention facilities. We need beds to put them in place so that they can have their due process before they return home. And this facility is exactly what I want every single governor in this country to consider doing with us. What happened to start this conversation was that a young man named Jimmy Percival in my office, my general counsel, who came from Florida and used to work here, called up the Attorney General and the governor and said, hey, what do you think about partnering with us on a detention facility that we could put in place that would allow us to bring individuals there? There's an airstrip close by. You guys volunteered the assets that you have and the connections that you have and worked with Kevin extensively so that we could come here, have their due process given, and return them home to their countries. And in 8 days, this facility has been stood up. And I want everybody to recognize that
And that was the President of the United States, Donald Trump, there speaking at a detention centre for illegal immigrants in Florida. It's been called the Alligator Alcatraz, and he just detailed there some of the astonishing statistics of what illegal immigration has cost America. Denver had to cut its policing budget by $10 million. Last year, 15% of all hotel rooms in New York City were occupied by illegal immigrants at room rates that would dwarf the average rent of Americans. He said medical bills of billions of dollars soared due to illegal immigrants, and American patients were treated far worse. He then said that the US spends an incredible $78 billion a year on translators. He said that's more than twice the cost of the justice system. He called this the worst invasion America has ever faced. He said it would be easier if they were an army, because at least then they would be wearing uniforms. And of course, he blamed this squarely on Joe Biden, saying that Kamala Harris was better but couldn't have been any worse than President Biden. Donald Trump there in Florida at the opening of a new detention centre. Now, good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. In 2 hours' time at 7 p.m. this evening, you can see live pictures on your screen now of the continuing debate in the House of Commons. Now, Sir Keir Starmer faces a make-or-break crunch vote on his welfare bill, with his own backbenchers rebelling, and the Conservatives, the Reform Party and the Liberal Democrats, and probably the SNP as well, uniting against it. Will the embattled PM live to fight on another day, or will his leadership be forever tainted, leaving him a dead man walking? And this government policy doesn't appear to be going very well at all.
Serious answer is to smash the gangs. We have to take those gangs down, to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade, to smash these gangs.
Yes, another grim landmark has been reached today, with now more than 20,000 illegal immigrants reaching British shores this year alone. Sir Keir Starmer promised to smash the gangs, but all he's smashing are records. And Elon Musk is threatening to launch his new America Party on day one, a new political party if Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill is passed into law. The ex-billionaire claims our country needs an alternative to the Uni Party, but could the move throw a lifeline to the dead duck Democrats and let them back into the White House? And that's all coming up in your next hour. Well, to show it's a pleasure to have your company on this sizzling afternoon, and the temperature is rising in the Commons. Just 2 hours to go now until that crunch vote on the welfare bill, and it's being hammered from all sides. The Labour Party are calling it Dickensian. They're saying it's simply too harsh on those on PIP payments and on disabilities, whereas those on the right of the House, the Reform Party, the Conservatives, they're saying it doesn't go far enough. Kemi Badenoch said this bill will bankrupt our children. They're expecting to vote against it. Now, 120 rebels seems to have dwindled down to 50 and then maybe now to 42, 43. Enough for this to limp over the line, but at what price? £2.5 billion in giveaways, a watering down of this budget, and more to the point, could that mean an opportunity for Sir Keir Starmer's political allies to be circling a leadership challenge to come in? I'll be joined in the studio in a short moment by Dan Hodges from the Mail. He said that Sir Keir Starmer is a dead man walking. He knows it. His days are numbered. Dan will join me in a moment's time to tell us why. Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say is the way to get in touch with us here. But now to your headlines, and here's Aaron Armstrong.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good evening to you. Just after 5 o'clock, our headlines. Downing Street has refused to rule out further concessions to the welfare bill. Asked about it earlier, a spokesman said that they weren't prepared to get into that, but refused to deny that version of events. Now, Labour, under threat of its own members voting against the bill, its own MPs, Sir Keir Starmer's team hoping to limit the fallout after the softening of their plans last week. You can see the debate going on in the Commons. Now only new disability benefit claimants will be affected under the revised package, but critics are warning it could still push 150,000 odd people into poverty. Liz Kendall, the Work and Pensions Secretary, says they are seeking to fix a broken benefit system they inherited from the previous Conservative government.
Members opposite left us with a system that incentivises people to define themselves as incapable of work just to be able to afford to live. They then wrote people off without any help or support and then blamed them to grab a cheap headline. The result is 2.8 million people out of work due to long-term sickness.
Well, the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, was critical of it. She's called the changes to the welfare bill rushed so that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, can plug holes in her budget.
A fundamental and serious programme to reform our welfare system is required, and this bill is not it. This bill is a fudge. We all know why this is happening. This is a rushed attempt to plug the Chancellor's fiscal hole. It is driven not by principle, but by panic. The changes were forced through not because they get more people into work, but because someone in 11 Downing Street made a mistake.
3 former hospital bosses have been arrested in connection with the Lucy Letby case. They're being questioned on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. The senior leaders were in charge at the Countess of Chester Hospital during 2015 and 2016, while Letby, now jailed for murdering 7 babies, was working there. It follows a major police investigation into corporate manslaughter at the hospital. Police say all 3 have been released on bail as inquiries continue. The UK's longest-running cold case has been solved after a 92-year-old man was jailed for life for the rape and murder of a widow in 1967. Ryan Headley was 34 when he broke into Louisa Dunn's Bristol home and attacked her. A jury found him guilty nearly 6 decades later after new evidence came to light. The judge called it a pitiless and cruel act by a depraved man. Energy bills are falling for 21 million households across the UK, although experts are warning they may not drop much more before winter. The typical monthly bill will be £11 less under Ofgem's new price cap. Gas and electricity rates both slightly reduced, but charities say prices are still painfully high. Families are budgeting tightly, they say, and turning to support schemes. Regulators are urging people to consider fixed deals to save up to £200 more per year. But the UK has been experiencing very hot conditions again, particularly in the southeast of the country. Temperatures higher than Barbados and Jamaica. It follows a record-breaking start to Wimbledon on Monday, where highs of 33.1 were recorded. Similarly hot at SW19 today. The UK Health Security Agency has been extending its health alerts, its heat health alerts to most regions. The southeast, as I mentioned, getting the most intense conditions as things ease off in Wales and further north. Finally, the King's been presented with the keys to the city of Edinburgh in a ceremony marking the start of his official stay in Scotland. Charles attended the traditional ceremony of the keys in the gardens of the Palace of Holyrood House, his official residence in the Scottish capital. And that happened shortly after the King and Queen arrived by helicopter. He always spends a week there each year at an event known as Holyrood Week or Royal Week in Scotland. And the King presented the keys by the Lord Provost, who held them out on the red cushion, which Charles symbolically touches. There's your headlines. I'll be back with more at 5:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Aaron. Now, in just under 2 hours' time, the Prime Minister is today braced for a major rebellion over, of course, the government's flagship welfare bill. You can see live pictures there of this still being debated in the Commons, because a crunch vote will come at 7 p.m. in the House of Commons, where around 50 of his own MPs are expected to vote against the legislation that is currently being debated in what would be the largest rebellion of Sir Keir's premiership so far to date. And meanwhile, the Prime Minister has told his cabinet today that there have been a significant number of achievements over the past 12 months in office, highlighting 3 trade deals, 4 interest rate cuts, breakfast clubs and free school meals. Now, this is, of course, amid record low poll ratings. Well, let's cross over now to outside Parliament and speak with GB News' political editor, Chris Hope. Chris, I understand you've got a guest for us. Chris, over to you.
That's right, Martin. Last week, 126 Labour MPs supported an amendment which would wreck these benefit plans tonight. Some are now changing their mind, and one of those with me now is Henry Tufnell, a Labour MP elected just last July. Henry Tufnell, why are you changing your mind supporting these plans?
So we've had a good dialogue. Government has listened to the concerns that me and a number of other colleagues have raised on this matter, as you say, that in terms of the number, about 126, 127. And we've had some concessions from government. So we've had, in terms of protecting existing payments from PIP, also with the universal health aspect to it, the universal credit, and then also we've had the Stephen Timms review, which will look in terms of looking at reassessing that PIP criteria, and then we also have the brought forward of the support into work. So there'll be additional 300 million, which will bring the total to 2 billion in terms of that support package in place to enable people who can work to get them back into work.
Do you agree the welfare system needs changing, needs reform?
Yes, of course. Yes.
So why were you going to cause such a problem for the government in doing that?
So we felt that it was going too quickly, and people in my constituency have been raising lots of concerns in Pembrokeshire about the speed of these reforms, and as a Labour government, we have to protect the most vulnerable in society. We have to make sure that the reforms come in the right way and in the right manner. And that's why I'm so pleased to be able to be now supporting the government as a result of these concessions that they put forward.
It's what you should do anyway. You're elected by this rather good campaign run by Keir Starmer, his advisor Morgan McSweeney, and now you've caused him a problem in his anniversary week.
Well, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's positive that a government with a massive majority can have these conversations, can have their listening exercise. But, irrespective of last week, we've had multiple conversations with ministers. There's been lots of engagement, and I think this shows strong leadership, actually, that you'll be able to course correct.
Let's talk tonight, of course, of further changes at the dispatch box. They may not change the qualification for PIP until after the Stephen Timms review comes. That'll cost more money, less savings yet again.
So, yeah, my understanding is that those conversations are ongoing. I've got full confidence in Stephen Timms. He's really well respected, and he's going to be doing it in conjunction with disability rights groups. So that's a really positive step forward, and that's part of the reason why I feel able to support the bill.
If you step back, though, won't this mean Labour will lose its nerve on reforming benefits? No one thinks that we should be spending £100 billion a year on benefits, more than the defence budget by the end of the decade. Surely the government now won't do it again, and then there's that opportunity has been missed because of your behaviour.
No, I completely disagree. I think the important thing to get into context is that we need to have good, secure employment. We need to have hospitals, healthcare that's fit to the future. We need to have good, secure, affordable housing. And we need to have affordable transport, good public transport as well. All of these measures will help reduce that size of that welfare bill as disabled people are able to get back into work who are able to do so. And those are really important reforms that will, over time, kick in as part of the plan for change and the change that we were elected to deliver and are now delivering on.
We're speaking just finally in the week when this government marks its one-year anniversary. Are you proud of the record in the first year? Because the polls aren't showing that.
Well, look, it's always a challenge being in government. Governing is difficult, especially given the fiscal inheritance that we had from the Conservative government. We've been in for, as you say, nearly a year, and we've got a lot to do. And it's this forms part of our overall package to change the country and transform people's lives. That's what this is about. This shouldn't be about a cost-cutting exercise. This is about transforming people's lives and thinking about the whole holistic package that we have in place around employment, health, transport, housing.
Henry Tufnell, thank you for joining us tonight on GB News. There you have it, one switcher revealed on GB News. Let's see how many more might come across to limit the embarrassment for the Prime Minister. Martin.
Thank you, Chris Hope there, live from Westminster Hall. We'll be crossing back to you, of course, throughout the rest of this historic day. It's worth pointing out Henry Tufnell was one of the farmer rebellions. Maybe he'll have the mood for a rebellion against the farmers' inheritance tax. Watch this space. Now, an extraordinary story coming here because a 92-year-old man will spend the rest of his life in prison after being convicted of the rape and murder of an elderly widow way back in 1967. Ryland Headley was jailed at Bristol Crown Court for life with a minimum term of 20 years for the rape and the murder of Louisa Dunn in 1967 in what's thought to be the UK's longest cold case to ever reach trial. Now, latest DNA technology, as well as matching palm prints taken at the scene more than 57 years ago, led to a jury to find Headley guilty on both charges. And this is the moment that Ryland Headley was arrested, nearly 60 years after the incident. And let's take a listen.
I'm here today because I'm arresting you on suspicion of the rape and murder of Louisa Dunn, which happened in Bristol in June 1967. The reason I'm arresting you is because the police have investigative material that indicates you are responsible for that rape and murder of Mrs. Dunn, which happened at Britannia Road in Eastern Bristol, June 1967. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you don't mention, when questioned, something that you later rely in court.
Simply incredible story, decades in the pursuit of justice. Let's now speak with the former Police and Crime Commissioner, Kevin Hurley. Kevin, I know that you're an expert on cold cases, but this is the coldest of all cold cases. Decades and decades in the pursuit of justice. An astonishing story.
Yeah, it's an amazing one. And it really puts in place those people who criticise the police taking DNA and fingerprints from people when they come into custody, because this guy was detected because of DNA that was taken for him when he was detained back in 2012. And then when they revisited some of their old cases, they actually came back to him. I think what it does tell me, and it makes me feel proud actually, that our detectives are still as good as they are. The police come in for a continual battering, and they bring it on themselves in some areas. But one thing that the police in this country are still quite excellent at is investigating murders and similar serious crimes. This kind of stuff simply doesn't go on in many other places in the world. So, this is a comfort. But I'll tell you what it also tells me, because I know the inside story on one of the most important murder cases in the UK, is the crucial need for documents, records and old historic exhibits to be retained Because I know for a fact, I won't mention it at the moment, but one of the most important cases, which recently resulted in convictions for murders, that this was sold when an officer went into the basement of a police station that was going to be sold off and found all the old case files and decided to have a look at them, and they then reopened the case. And quite frankly, the cuts to policing have consequences that we don't always see every day. And some of them are that the archives and records that have helped with this outstanding piece of police work, capturing this monster 60 years after he thought he got away with it. You know, this is another consequence when we slash the criminal justice system. And I do urge the government to stop this messing around, bite the bullet and say we have not got enough money to keep us safe, and we need to deal, and I'm going to make a political point here, we need to deal with some of our extreme left-wing MPs who still think they're in the student union in Manchester, forcing the government to spend money on welfare benefits that we can't afford. But here endeth the rant, if you like, as a citizen, combined with my pride in what the detectives down in the old Bristol City Police, before it became Avon and Somerset Constabulary, did, in the way they put that case, if you like, to sleep and then revisited it. Outstanding piece of work.
Yeah, Kevin Hurley, the evidence is incredible. The woman was found dead inside her home in the eastern area of Bristol. She was bruised, blooded. She was significantly injured, her underwear around her ankles, and the evidence was taken then. All of those decades later, it was pieced together. And Kevin Hurley, I totally think everybody listening to this show will concur with you. Put in the resource, put in the effort into proper boots on the ground policing, doing that time-consuming, you know, exemplary work. That's what we expect and want and demand of a police force, not faffing around on social media and wasting time.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, one of the things that really does concern me is the thing that's suffered badly in these cuts has been forensic evidence, crime scene examiners, the ability of local divisional detectives to send exhibits off to be examined at laboratories, because it's all costed these days, and their budget's been cut. You are right, we do need boots on the street, people out there responding, because it's bad enough as it is at the moment. But it's false economy not to invest in forensic science, which means you can catch the really bad people like this. You can catch the terrorists. And the hidden costs to policing with all this austerity, and yet again the failure of this government to address the fact that we've got 10 million extra people in this country from when the policing budget model was set up, and they are not providing the additional funding for the work that these extra people are bringing, many of whom bring totally different values to those which we'd had before in the UK. So, you know, I'll pick this up now. No one ever talks about it, but the cuts to forensic science and crime scene investigation, the sexy stuff, have had a significant effect over really the last 15, 20 years when the Tories first brought the cuts in, and Labour are failing to address it because of their weakness.
OK, well, Kevin Hurley, thank you very much for making that political point. Thank you very much. And, you know, sometimes justice needs to be seen to be done, even when this rapist and killer was 92 years old. Ryan Headley would almost certainly spend, or guaranteed to spend, the rest of his life in jail. Thank you very much, Kevin Hurley. Always a pleasure. Now, coming up, we'll be hearing about shocking new methods of that the grooming gangs, the rape gangs are using. They're still out there, and now they're getting more technological. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Business News Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 5:23 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio by Chris Curtis. He's the Labour MP for Milton Keynes North. Here to talk about the Royal Train being decommissioned, but also, of course, there's that crunch vote in Parliament tonight. So let's start with that, if we could. Chris Curtis. So we're around about an hour and a half away from that crunch vote. How are you intending to vote?
Oh, I'll be voting with the government. I had some concerns about the changes, like many of my colleagues passed those concerns on to government. They've listened to those concerns, they've adapted. We've got this review coming up, but we do need to acknowledge that if we want to keep that welfare state there to support those who need it into the future, it is going to have to go through changes and it is going to have to go through reforms. And we need to be a government that's brave enough to put those reforms in place. And tonight's vote is the first step towards that. It's a watered-down change, isn't it? I mean, it was meant to be a £5 billion saving off a balloon £100 billion per year bill. It's now gone down to half of that, £2.5 billion saving, and yet it's still being described as Dickensian by some of the Labour MPs. The best way of bringing down the welfare bill overall as a package is to get people back into work. There are lots of changes we're doing in order to do and support that. A big back to work package, what we're calling the right to try, so people can try out work without fear of losing their benefits. But look, the big thing is, and also getting down an NHS waiting list, because that's the biggest reason people are out of work. But that PIP support, we're not going to get all of those savings that we expected now, but what we're doing is we're looking at a review over the next few months, led by Stephen Timms, really trusted and respected by people right across this issue, and he's going to look at how we can make sure that the system is sustainable into the future. That's what's important to me. We can't let the cost balloon out of control. We need to support those who need support most. How can we create a system that does that? The current system doesn't. Now, it's likely that the rebellion will be significantly watered down, so the proposition will go ahead. Keir Starmer will live to fight again another day. A lot of people saying, though, that it may significantly weaken him as a Prime Minister. What do you say to that? I don't think that's true. Keir Starmer has my unwavering support and the unwavering support of many, or almost everybody in the Labour Party, and he does for many reasons. Most importantly, he delivered that incredibly significant general election victory just a year ago. You know, the support of so many people across this country, which gave us that landslide victory. And now it's so important, given the challenges this country faces, you know, the problems with our economy, the problems with our public services, that we all pull and work together in order to deliver for the British people. And that's what I'm going into work doing every day. I think most of my colleagues are as well.
Great stuff. Now, you're here also today to talk about the Royal Train.
Far more important, isn't it?
Yeah, the far more important. So the Royal Train has been decommissioned. Many think it's a sad day.
It is a sad day.
We hear it's going to be put potentially into a museum, but you've got a better idea, you believe, for what could be done with it.
Well, look, I think firstly we need to talk about why we should try and save the Royal Train. This is a really important and crucial part of this country's history. But most importantly, it's a really important and crucial part of my constituency's history. I live somewhere called Wolverton, which is halfway up the West Coast Main Line railway line, right in the centre. It's where we, the Britain's first big intercity railway line was run effectively from, and it has for most of that history been the home of the Royal Train. It's where Queen Victoria used to stop on many of her journeys up and down the country. And actually, I think it's a really important part of our culture and history. And at a time when we are going through a rail revolution in this country, lots more people using the railway lines, we're supporting new railway lines across both the north and south of this country. It's really important that our head of state, our monarch, continues to show that support. And I think keeping the Royal Train, maybe looking at how we can use it for other uses as well.
How should we use it?
There's many things that we could do. We could look at how you could use it for recreational uses, how you could sell tickets on it and everything else at times when it's not being used by the monarch. But I think it's really important that this isn't something that just goes and sits in a museum. I think you were just showing a picture of the King going up to Edinburgh today. Yeah. It should be going by helicopter, right? This, it's a sustainable, decent form of transport. The train, we need more people on our railways. I think the King should be leading by the front and keeping and supporting the Royal Train.
And you even mentioned a use potentially for military veterans on it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, there's many things that we can be doing, including supporting our military veterans. But I think, it's a real iconic symbol of what makes this country great, that we've had this train running on our railway lines for decades. And, from Queen Victoria onwards, we are the country that built the modern railway system. We let that deteriorate. This is a government that is putting investment into bringing the railway system into the 21st century. We need to bring the Royal Train into the 21st century, not look at decommissioning it, but actually looking at how it can be something that continues into the future. And I'm determined to campaign and work with government and the Royals to look at options that we have to do that.
Well, thanks for joining us in the studio today. I appreciate your time. Of course, that is Chris Curtis, Labour MP for Milton Keynes. Thank you for your time. Now, moving swiftly onwards, a lawyer with significant experience of defending victims of rape gangs has issued a stark warning, suggesting that gangs are still absolutely and routinely operating in Britain, but they've changed their methods and instead they're targeting young girls online rather than in the street. And he adds that this has shifted to a younger generation of offenders. Well, let's speak now with the lawyer Marcus Johnson, a solicitor and managing director at PCD Solicitors. Mr. Johnson, welcome to the show. You have significant experience, I believe, a couple of decades in this area, and you're noticing a sublime and yet concerning change of tactics of rape gangs.
Yes, that's right, Martin. It has changed over time. 20 years ago, as we know, because this grooming scandal has gone on for over 20 years, it's been traditional gangs on the street, accessing young girls from taxis, from market stalls, from corner shops, takeaway shops, and so on. And it's surprising that it's taken all this time to then get some kind of national inquiry to look into the background of this and to try and find out why we haven't been keeping statistics and data on the people who were accused of committing these offences. And yet it's absolutely ludicrous that we now get to the stage where we've got this national inquiry about to start, and yet from my side, it's all changing to online offences now, in that the crimes are not necessarily being committed with the gangs on the street as such, because in the day and age that we live, it's all online. And of course, it's a younger generation now from 20, 25 years ago. And so most of the inquiries that I receive are relating to people who have been accused by the police or been investigated or been charged. But it largely relates to online grooming. It starts online. It often then changes over to meeting people in person. And even then, the methods are more sophisticated. A case just dealing with recently involved online grooming through encrypted chats, so the data is very difficult for the police to obtain. But then it moves on to arranging and putting these young girls and children into Airbnb accommodation. where they can then be abused. Very difficult to track. So it is changing. The sophistication of the gangs and the people involved, it's changing dramatically. And my concern is that the police are struggling to cope even now. And they simply cannot cope unless huge resources go into the police training to deal with online communications and the online attempts to meet children.
And Marcus, of course, we're almost grotesquely familiar now with, taxis being used, with takeaways, with shops being used as the interface for vulnerable, ostensibly white working class girls. But you're now saying that they're being groomed online first, they're being reached because of their vulnerability, sometimes within care homes, and then they're being nurtured into the real world. So they're being reached in advance of how they may have been reached previously.
That's correct. I mean, if you think about it, and you'll know, Martin, and your viewers will know, that kids 10, 11, 12 years old all have mobile phones. Everything's online. It's all communications. It's all about Snapchat and Kik and Telegram and apps. It's all about meeting people. Well, of course, they're the type of people that the groomers will target. That's just the way it is. And they're very sophisticated in how they approach and target those young girls. They don't pretend to be, a 25-year-old lad. They pretend to be a 14-year-old lad. They try to get something common. They try to typically groom them. And that can take some time. It takes sometimes weeks or months or possibly even a year or two. But that they will then integrate and they'll bring them into meeting. They'll often mix with their friends. They'll get people over. And it really starts to win the child over, so much so that the child becomes to believe that the groomer is in fact their boyfriend.
OK, well, Marcus Johnson, thank you for joining us and thank you for making sure we all understand this is still going on. And, of course, the rapist can often stay one step ahead of authorities. Thank you very much. That's the Solicitor and Managing Director at PCD Solicitors. Thanks for your time. Now, we've got some breaking news just coming into us now. And it's this: the US Senate has passed Donald Trump's sweeping spending and tax bill. The final vote was wafer thin in its margin, 51-50, with the Vice President J.D. Vance casting that final, all-important, tie-breaking vote. And the House now has the reins on Donald Trump's domestic policy package, where questions remain about whether enough lawmakers will vote for the new package. That's a significant breaking story. Donald Trump's new bill. The US Senate has passed Donald Trump's sweeping spending and tax bill, the big, beautiful bill. The final vote was 51-50, with Vice President J.D. Vance casting that all-important final vote. More on that throughout the rest of the show. Coming up next, Rupert Lowe will join me in the studio to tell us about his new political movement and also how he intends to vote in this crunch benefits bill vote this evening. But for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, then here is your traffic and your travel update. Stay safe and please stick with us.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Congestion on the A75 Dumfries bypass eastbound is causing delays due to an emergency closure on the A701 northbound at Bloomfield roundabout, adding about 22 minutes to travel time. A collision on the A56 northbound in Cheshire East is closing one lane, causing delays. A vehicle fire has closed 2 of 4 lanes on the M23 southbound in West Sussex. Diversions remain on the A48M for maintenance around the M4 junction at St Mellons. And on the trains, South Western Railway faces major disruptions on some routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hi there, good evening to you. Let's get the headlines from the GB newsroom. 3 former hospital bosses have been arrested in connection with the Lucy Letby case. They're being questioned on suspicion of gross negligent manslaughter. Police say all 3 have been released on bail as inquiries continue. It's understood Labour rebels are being offered a further concession ahead of a key vote on the government's welfare bill. The timing of the proposed changes to independence payments will, it's understood, take into account findings of a review which is due in autumn 2026, meaning any changes applied to new claimants won't come into force until 2027. Energy bills to drop £11 for 21 million households under Ofgem's new price cap. Experts are warning they may rise again by winter. Charities are urging families to consider fixed deals. The King's been presented with the keys to the city of Edinburgh in a ceremony marking the start of his official stay in Scotland. Each year, the monarch traditionally spends a week at Holyrood House, an event known as Royal Week in Scotland. And it's continuing to be hot, but we understand that the south of England may be through the worst. Not the case in Europe. Spain and Portugal have had up to 46 degrees today. It's been 35 in the UK, although it's expected to cooler off a little more as the week goes on. Those are your headlines. More at the top of the next hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, the heat hasn't been everywhere, but if you're in the southeast, it has been really hot today and oppressively humid. It may be welcome news to hear that things are going to be turning fresher. There is a cold front nearby that's brought a bit of cloud, bit of rain, and behind it there is fresher air coming in, and so temperatures are going to be dropping. But for the time being, still hot and humid across parts of the southeast as we go through the end of the day and through overnight as well. Elsewhere, there's some clouds, some rain, which could be a bit heavy at times across some northern parts of England, southern Scotland, but mainly a east-west split as we go overnight. Clearer weather towards the west, a bit cloudier towards the east, and like I said, still pretty warm and humid in the southeast, but it isn't going to be quite as warm as it was last night. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, eastern parts of Scotland, here it's a cloudy start. There'll be some further rain. That could still be quite heavy at times. Further west, a brighter picture, but a few showers starting to push into the Western Isles already. And similar across Northern Ireland, mostly fine, but a few showers out towards the far west. A west-east split across England and Wales, cloudier towards the east. Outbreaks of rain, which could be quite heavy, brighter, drier towards the west. Then as we go through the day tomorrow, watch out for some heavier bursts of rain pushing into parts of the southeast across Kent into East Anglia. Could be a bit of thunder mixed in with these. Also, some of the rain across eastern England, eastern Scotland could have a bit of thunder mixed in. Otherwise, there'll be further showers feeding in across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but across the rest of England and Wales, actually looking like a fine day. And temperatures, particularly in the southeast, markedly lower than they have been of late, mid-20s at highest, so feeling much more comfortable, really. The worst of the rain clears away towards the east as we go through tomorrow evening, but there will be a few showers continuing across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and thereafter through the rest of the week, well, it is going to be more changeable. There's going to be some wet weather coming in from the northwest, and that could be heavy at times.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news,
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racist tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 20 to 6 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Prime Minister is braced for a major rebellion today, a vote in about an hour and 20 minutes' time over the government's flagship welfare bill. You can see the live pictures there from the Commons of the ongoing debate and the flagship welfare bill. And as a result, the government has offered a further concession to Labour rebels over its welfare reforms, with changes to the Personal Independence Payments, PIP, not taking place until after a review of the benefit has concluded. So a further watering down. It was called Dickensian. Look on the screens now. The ghost of Christmas past. Jeremy Corbyn talking away. No doubt he's dead against this bill. I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio now by the MP for Great Yarmouth. Of course, that's Rupert Lowe. Mr. Lowe, welcome to the show, Rupert. No doubt this is the bill you yourself are going to vote down, and I want to ask you why.
Well, Martin, first of all, let me say what a delight it is to be back. I haven't been here for a long time, and I'm very pleased to be joining my ex-Brexit Party MEP colleague in the studio. Yeah, look, this bill tonight, the problem we've got is we've got too much welfare. And we've got a House of Commons that is out of touch with reality. You've got, I think, MPs who don't understand how tough it is for tax-paying citizens and how they are bearing the brunt of all this welfarism and statism. And what we're seeing, I think, is a sort of shuffling of the chairs on the Titanic. My view is that I will vote probably against this bill on the basis that it doesn't go far enough in cutting welfare payments. I want to see a culture which rewards hard work, which rewards risk-taking, and which rewards people who contribute. I think we've got the blend between the hard, if you like, the workers and the shirkers, as Maggie would say. We've got it very wrong. And we've also got a DWP that is incapable of efficiently distributing benefits. There aren't face-to-face meetings to a great enough extent. I think we need a huge overhaul. This is not a big enough overhaul. It doesn't go far enough. And yet, Labour MPs are trying to water it down.
Yeah, and we're seeing that 50% U-turn, we called it yesterday. It was meant to save $5 billion, but that's of $100 billion by 2030. And it's now only $2.5 billion, a 2.5% cost saving. And yet today, Rupert Lowe, we find out from the Taxpayers Alliance, people are getting PIP payments for acne, for alcoholism, for writer's cramp. Many people watching the show who've worked all their lives, who are coming back from work today, think Britain has become an absolute joke. And a lot of people may agree with you that this doesn't go far enough. What needs to be done, in particular with people coming from overseas?
Well, people who come from overseas should be making a contribution for whatever the time period is, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. They need to have made a positive contribution. And look, I'm pro very, very targeted immigration. I think it's very good for an economy to bring in skills and young people who are going to contribute to the economy. What I don't think is clever is to bring in vast numbers of people who are basically going to add nothing to the economy and probably end up on benefits. So I think we've got it very wrong. We've got too much illegal immigration. We've got too much legal immigration. And for the life of me, I can't understand why our leaders think it's a good thing. It might increase the overall GDP, but it reduces the GDP per capita, which is not good for all of us.
And when you look at some of the data out today as well, we're seeing clear pockets of spikes of people claiming anxiety, depression in the valleys of Wales, in Merseyside, in County Durham, Labour areas. Do you think it's fair to say today that this is the Pips for votes affair that's going on? Labour Party can't vote this down because they're going to lose thousands and thousands of votes in their own constituency.
Well, if you look at the grooming gangs, a lot of the root cause of people walking across on the other side of the street looking the other way was because of the block vote that originally was to the benefit of Labour, and most of this happened in Labour wards. So the genesis of people in Parliament is, or the motivation is, they want to be re-elected. They want their £93,000 a year. They want to be swimming around in the Westminster Pond, which is a very comfortable place to be. And they will do whatever they need to do, whether it's right for them. It's not necessarily right for the country. So I think most Brits, and we can go on to talk about Restore Britain, I think most decent British people think that there's too much pork barrelling going on. You know, you can get a Motability car far too easily, just in the same way that you can get personal independence payments. You've got literally not enough scrutiny before handout.
Okay,
and that's what we've got to change.
We've got a quick minute to talk about your new venture. It's not a political party. It's called Restore Britain. What is it?
It's a movement, Martin. And the reason I thought it was better to go for a movement is we've got too many political parties. They're not led by the right people. And all they do is create division. And what I think, we all know Britain's going wrong. We all see it every day. The Britain we used to know and love that worked so well is and has gone off the rails. So what a movement can do, it's cross-party, it can unite. And what we need to do is unite those people who want their country back in a common purpose. And it's amazing the response we've had. We've had an incredible response in the last 24 hours.
A lot of people thought you might have joined forces with Ben Habib, who we had in yesterday, but that doesn't seem to have happened.
Well, I think a movement is the right solution. Ben philosophically thought a party was the right solution. A movement can turn into a party. It might take over another party. It might equally merge with a party that's led by people who the movement likes.
Well, it might allow you to go into the Conservative Party.
The important thing, Martin, is that we unite the British people behind a common-sense vision of what they want for their country. And the more people who unite behind that, the more chance we have of making common sense prevail. And that's why a movement is so much more powerful than a party at this stage.
OK, Rupert Lowe, thank you very much for joining me today in the studio. It's been long overdue. Thank you very, very much indeed. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, and here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations. Here you go.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
The heat wave continues across western and central parts of continental Europe, temperatures widely reaching the mid-30s, and this is likely to trigger some quite severe thunderstorms at times, particularly across Spain, northern parts of Italy, parts of Switzerland. This could bring some quite intense hail, frequent lightning and also some gusty winds. But across southern parts of Italy, parts of Greece, it should remain mostly settled. Plenty of intense sunshine continuing as we head into the weekend, and temperatures widely remaining in the mid-30s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
For working class families, what are the fundamentals that they are looking for? They're looking for good housing, they're looking for good schools, they're looking for good jobs that give them a fair day's wage for a fair day's graft, they're looking for a strong NHS, and they're looking for safe communities to live in. When you have all of those foundations in place, then it means that children, young people, they can flourish, they can do well alongside their parents and their grandparents. And I think if you look at what this Labour government has done, we're 10 months into a 5-year programme here, by the way, but in the first 10 months of this new Labour government, they have put major policy reforms in place across all 5 of those key foundations for working class families. And so I'm confident that we're starting to see some of it here in Basildon, where Basildon is starting to get better again. I'm confident that by the end of this Parliament, because of what the government is doing now, we will start to see some positive changes for working class families.
OK, Christo, what do you make of it?
I think that Bridget Phillipson makes a very fair point when she says that white working class families and those peoples are being left behind. But unfortunately, her actions as Education Secretary don't align with what I believe are these completely hollow words. So, for instance, we've seen white working class boys particularly, but now girls, falling behind in education for absolutely years. So why Bridget Phillipson would then bring in a policy that is seeing, by the latest figures, 13,000 private school pupils entering the state school system, why on earth she would bring in that kind of policy, whilst then having the audacity to say that she's worried about white working class pupils not doing so well, is beyond me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 10 to 6 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the former advisor to Donald Trump, Elon Musk, is threatening to launch his own political party called the America Party if the US president's so-called Big Beautiful Bill passes. Well, it did. It narrowly passed moments ago in the US Senate because the Vice President, J.D. Vance, had the final say on this bill. Let's take a quick listen.
The yeas are 50. The nays are 50. The Senate being evenly divided, the Vice President votes in the affirmative. The bill as amended is passed.
Well, I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the studio by the Republican commentator, Nora Lee Knotson. Nora Lee, welcome to the show. So,
thank you, Martin.
Elon Musk said he'd launched the party on day one. Today is day one. The Big Beautiful Bill has been passed. Will he do it, and would it be a mistake?
That's a very good question. I know it's made for a good reading today, but I think it would be a massive mistake for Elon Musk to launch the American Party. He claimed that we have only one party, the Uni Party in the U.S., and people don't have a choice. Well, clearly that's insane because politics has never been more divided than we see it in today's time. I think Elon Musk and Donald Trump are very aligned. They both believe in fiscal responsibility. And as you know, Elon Musk was brought in for Doge to cut $2 trillion from spending, which he hasn't done. He cut $160 billion. And that was supposed to help balance out this big, beautiful bill. So I would ask, is it just a bit of sour grapes, perhaps, on Elon Musk's side? But I think he's obviously been doing something he shouldn't be doing today and started going on X with all of this nonsense.
Now, Nora Lee, we've got a quick minute left. Here's the point. Surely, if Elon Musk does launch the America Party, it will split the vote and allow the Democrats back into power.
You're right. It would be very bad for MAGA Party. He claims that he's going to back everybody who voted for that, the opposition of every senator who voted for that bill. But we saw him try to do that in Wisconsin, and he failed. And I think, if anything, he's just reminding Donald Trump, remember, I spent $300 billion to get you into power, and he wants his $38 billion that he gets in subsidies from the government.
Do you think that they will kiss and make up? This will go away?
I think two very powerful men, they are stronger together. I would love to see them kiss and make up and work together to continue to make America great.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you very much for joining us, Nora Lee Knotson. Always a pleasure to have your company. Now, coming up next, of course, is Jubes & Co. ahead of that crunch vote at 7 p.m. Jubes will have all the run-up. Her show is always big, it's always beautiful. Here's the host, Michelle Dewberry. Jubes, what's on your menu?
Thank you very much for that, Martin. Great show. I mean, don't they just do things completely differently in America? Big, beautiful bills, not over here. We've got watering down, we've got slashing, we've got U-turns, we've got absolute panic. Kemi Badenoch says that all of this welfare reform stuff is panic over principle. Is she right? How on earth have we got ourselves into this absolute mess as a country? And how on earth, more importantly, do we get ourselves out of the mess, the self-harm that we seem intent on inflicting? See you in 2.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Now, the heat hasn't been everywhere, but if you're in the southeast, it has been really hot today and oppressively humid. It may be welcome news to hear that things are going to be turning fresher. There is a cold front nearby that's brought a bit of cloud, bit of rain, and behind it there is fresher air coming in, and so temperatures are going to be dropping. But for the time being, still hot and humid across parts of the southeast as we go through the end of the day and through overnight as well. Elsewhere, there's some clouds, some rain, which could be a bit heavy at times across some northern parts of England, southern Scotland, but mainly a east-west split as we go overnight. Clearer weather towards the west, a bit cloudier towards the east, and like I said, still pretty warm and humid in the southeast, but it isn't going to be quite as warm as it was last night. Then as we go through tomorrow morning, eastern parts of Scotland, here it's a cloudy start. There'll be some further rain. That could still be quite heavy at times. Further west, a brighter picture, but a few showers starting to push into the Western Isles already, and similar across Northern Ireland, mostly fine, but a few showers out towards the far west. A west-east split across England and Wales, cloudier towards the east, outbreaks of rain which could be quite heavy, brighter, drier towards the west. Then as we go through the day tomorrow, watch out for some heavier bursts of rain pushing into parts of the southeast, across Kent into East Anglia. Could be a bit of thunder mixed in with these. Also, some of the rain across eastern England, eastern Scotland could have a bit of thunder mixed in. Otherwise, there'll be further showers feeding in across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but across the rest of England and Wales, actually looking like a fine day. And temperatures, particularly in the southeast, markedly lower than they have been of late, mid-20s at highest, so feeling much more comfortable, really. The worst of the rain clears away towards the east as we go through tomorrow evening, but there will be a few showers continuing across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. And thereafter, through the rest of the week, well, it is going to be more changeable. There's going to be some wet weather coming in from the northwest, and that could be heavy at times.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A75 Dumfries bypass is restricted eastbound due to congestion from an emergency closure at the A701 northbound at Bloomfield roundabout, causing delays. A collision on the A556 northbound between junctions with the A50 and M56 in Cheshire East has closed one lane. In West Sussex, the M23 southbound faces lane closures after a vehicle fire between junction 9 and 10, causing delays. And on the trains, expect disruptions on Avanti West Coast service between Stoke-on-Trent and Macclesfield, and on Chiltern Railways between West Ruislip and Princes Risborough. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Imagine having an extra £1,000 to spend each week for an entire year. £54,321 in tax-free cash could be yours. Cash to spend however you like. £54,321 in cash could be landing in your bank account this year. For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a